OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
All right, it's 7:30. It's Tuesday morning after the bank holiday weekend. You're very welcome along. We are bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. Isn't that right, Owen?
Oh, very bright-eyed and very bushy-tailed.
Where do you start after a weekend like that?
I don't know. It's almost as if like Manchester United came along last night and was like, "No, you have to talk about us."
No, we don't though. It turns out
on chronological terms. I mean, you've had a great weekend of sport. Talk about us. Well, actually, funny enough, Ronnie OSullivans was also pretty capable of taking the spotlight and putting it on himself last night.
But do you know what? Actually, you're right. We should start Man United because they're not, for the first time, as far as I can remember, they're not in the performance rankings, which we're about to get into. So I'll give you 10 seconds to speak about Manchester United if you want.
Should we do like a Ralph Rangnick quote where he gave out the exact possession stats and he had them at the tip of his tongue when he was interviewed afterwards? That seems like a USP, isn't it? Impressing people with, we had 73% possession in the first half and a 65% possession overall.
Okay, or we could do the best one of all, which is Manchester United, who cares? Which is kind of where they're at for the last few weeks of the season, where nothing important is happening. Apparently, I didn't see it, but Roy Keane went off on a rant. It's on the back page of one of the English papers this morning, where it's like, I'm like, really? This feels like he's playing the hits from the whole season here. And he's like rolling it out for one last time. Just getting it ready, it's like a tune-up. It's like one of those challenge matches that we never hear about between two Division 1 football teams from different provinces who are like, we'll see you out there later on in the season, but his heart wasn't in it. I don't know, because I didn't see any actual clips on social media which suggests that it was like everybody has that fatigue set in.
It's just like a sort of limp conclusion, isn't it?
There's no point to it anymore, is there?
He's not really building up for anything. Maybe if there was like a token FA Cup final in there.
Exactly.
Or a race for the top four, but it's just...
He did say,
sullen.
Picking Juan Mata, that's sentimental. And I was like, in fairness, it's a good point. Like, why is Juan Mata playing games?
Well, I mean, it was a sentimental decision that essentially produced one of their best performances of the season. So.
Maybe Mata should have played every game of the season. I mean, that was every manager there wanted to play Mata, but just didn't have the balls to do it. And Rangnick finally is like picking the team. Yeah, I'm going to put him in. What do I got to lose at this stage?
Juan Mata, James Milner, it was a hell of a day, a hell of a weekend for 2013.
It's 7:33 this morning. We're going to fix this because it is time for this week's edition of the Gillette Performance Labs.
That wasn't an All-Ireland winning performance.
Probably should have won the game based on their second half performance.
Is it a step too far to say it was the performance so far of the World Cup? Maybe not.
OTB AM's performance rankings with Gillette.
I'm scratching my head. That performances was just lacked that intensity.
OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. The Gillette Performance Labs are a different thing which have yet to be invented, but we've done our best this morning to invent a new thing for you. So welcome.
I think you use like every constellation of words involved in that sentence to deliver something different. Like at least it's not the Gillette Power Rankings this morning for once. It is the performance rankings. We did this every Monday morning, even though today's a Tuesday because it was a bank holiday.
We're still on bank holiday.
Where we go through the red, the amber and the green from the weekend sport. We usually start in the red, which is exactly what we're going to do this morning. And Kildare Yeras, it says there, is in the red. You are essentially in the red this morning, and it's high time.
Feels comfortable, feels pretty good, Owen.
Somebody called you out on this. You've had Mick O'Dwyer in your county, you've had Jack O'Connor in your county, and you have learned nothing. You decided last week was going to be the week that you played the error card. You can only play the error card once in a season. That
really?
is the rule. That
can
is
you
the
only,
rule.
Is
no,
it?
nobody trusts you. You can do it once a year, and people it goes 11 months, and people forget that you're up to something. But you can only do it once a year, and you used it on Louth. Granted, they'd scored 5 goals the previous week, and I do believe that there was some genuine nervousness in your voice last week. But by and large, you were trying to cod us, and you sold us a pup. And anybody who thought that this was going to be a contest wasn't going to be a contest. And I ask you, who is the real powerhouse in Leinster? Which is the better result? A 16-point win against Division 3 champions, or a 23-point win against a team who couldn't get out of Division 4?
It was pretty impressive. You have to say, there was two things in this, right? First one is history matters, right? When you're watching Mayo kick wides, you just believe that it's because that's who Mayo are. When you're watching Kilkenny come back from the dead, it's because you believe that's what Kilkenny are. For Kildare, being super hyped and very confident and running into the buzzsaw of Louth in the championship, history mattered. That's why. So all this wasn't Yera. This was just a deep understanding of our place in football history, and that is to get very, very excited, to lose the run of ourselves, a la Mayo. I mean, people forget that Kildare in the 90s were the original Mayo. I just want to say that, like, we had that whole most hyped, most patronised role in football, with maybe a little bit that poor Mayo had because of the brawl in the middle of it. But we started the decade and finished the decade in the 90s, and then they took over. Like, essentially, people kind of forgot about us until McGeeney arrived. And then when McGeeney arrived, we were on TV every single game. Every single game they played, particularly every first-round exit from the Leinster Championship. So things have changed. That's all. I feel pretty good about the fact that things have changed. That first 10, 15 minutes where we kicked like 10 points, 10 beautiful points. Muscular running, brilliant support lines, confidence. No real bad wides, touch wood. It was pretty impressive stuff. You got to be excited.
Like, yeah, absolutely. I only saw the highlights, didn't see the full thing, but looking forward to seeing them play in Croke Park in those wide open spaces that this team could actually potentially love.
White boots.
In a few weeks' time.
Get everybody white boots.
Is Daniel Flynn wearing white boots at the moment?
There was a couple of white boots. Feely had white boots as well. Like, yeah, give us the white boots. Feely taking the penalty like a proper soccer player.
Yeah.
Not in doubt.
Flynn looks amazing at the moment. He looks like I know 2018 he gets his All-Star, doesn't he? And like, it's very, very hard to get back to that level again, and in terms of what you're expecting. But it just feels that like some of the younger forwards playing alongside him have kind of inspired this guy into a whole other level. I think to say, like, there's a bit of a mirror image there with Dublin, I think, when you look at their forward line and you insert Con O'Callaghan back into that forward line, everybody sort of kind of perks up a little bit and is like, okay, this is first of all going to allow me a little bit more space and a little bit less attention from the opposition defence. And also, I think, the sort of looking around at the players beside you and saying, right, I'm no longer carrying this team, which might have been maybe Daniel Flynn's perspective for a while. There are players here who have a ceiling similar to mine, like obviously Highlands, Kerwin, like Paddy Woodgate come off the bench. I think he's been really good during the league, and he's looking around at that inside forward line and saying, this is actually something that I want to be a part of, and I think that we can actually take down a big fish this year. I don't think it's going to be Dublin. I think Dublin, like, if we're being genuine here, I think looked outstanding on Saturday, and conceding 4 points over the course of 75 minutes or whatever it was, regardless of who you are, I think that for me just earmarks them as almost automatic Leinster champions. But it's still a game I want to watch. I still want to see Kildare against Dublin in the Leinster final, and I know we still have to go through the semi-finals before we get there. But I think the performances we saw at the weekend, I would be surprised if that's not the final.
Look, Kildare will be strong favourites against Westmeath. Westmeath will cause them difficulties, have caused them a lot of difficulties, should have beaten them in the championship. Was it last year? That was last year. Have I forgotten about it? Did I miss a year with COVID? It was last year. So, like, really should have beaten them in the championship last year. So it won't be as easy as the game against Louth turned out to be. But they look confident, and they look like they've really benefited from the change in style, the change in ambition that the current management group have obviously instilled in them, and a unity and a sense of purpose. So I think that they could cause some very good teams a lot of hassle this year.
It is a Tuesday morning. We tend to update the football power rankings on a Tuesday morning. We're not doing that.
Where would they be now? Front page?
Kildare.
Front page news?
I actually don't know. Kildare. Where would they be? Possibly front page news.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe the Division 3 champions, you've got to give them... The form line is pretty good for Louth.
Yeah, well, I do think the story of the weekend, though, power rankings wise, would be Dublin in at number 2, right? I think it's very hard to.
Well, I think the story of the weekend is going to be Derry on the front page, right?
Derry on the front page and Tyrone being moved.
Off the front page?
Not off the front page.
They could be.
Not off the front page.
I think. Look, I was slow to this. Very slow. I thought that Tyrone were going to be okay, but we weren't slow to Derry. We've been tipping Derry at 50-1, saying that's a great bet all year. That's good value. There's no value to be had in this, except that might be good value. They could go on a run, and here they are. They're on the run with Monaghan, who were handy, also kicking 22 points or whatever it was they kicked at the weekend to come the next round. So. Yeah,
Monaghan also a team, it looks like, that are just benefiting from a bit more of unpredictability in attack, where Conor McManus can still do Conor McManus things. But it's also like, who's this big hulking full forward, Gary Mohan, that they have that is causing us to think a little bit more about more than just one player. And obviously Jack McCarron, if he can put together like a good championship, then the Monaghan are going to be a contender in an All-Ireland sense. And I think we all know that in Ulster they're always a contender. Like, from Tyrone's perspective, like we can't say last week that we called this, like Tommy Rudy called it on Friday in the quick picks. One of his arguments was that Shane McGuigan was missing for like the latter stages of the league, which I thought was a tangible piece of evidence. But for me, there wasn't enough other tangible pieces of evidence to suggest that this result was actually going to happen, because yes, we had the Tyrone departures, and that of course is going to have an impact, given we saw what happened to maybe Dublin last year when their depth dwindled a little bit. But I just hadn't seen any evidence of that on the scoreboard. And to be honest with you, in some of the performances, we actually hadn't seen it. Like their last performance of the league was winning Killarney. Look, they were a bit patchy against Fermanagh, but it was not a bad performance in an overall sense, for their first performance of the league. I did not see this coming from Tyrone. Derry obviously sparked into life, and they were a team that we were talking about quite a lot during the league. But I didn't think that there was enough of a Derry uptick and enough of a Tyrone decline for this result to happen, let alone for it to happen in the manner in which it did, where they were completely dismantled. Like Tyrone are the other team in the red, by the way, this morning, which kind of like moves us nicely onto that. And for me, the most encouraging thing for a Tyrone supporter this week is that they were completely awful. They were like an absolute shambles at times, like kicking balls out over the sideline, kicking balls out over the end line, fisted efforts for points that barely make it into the goalkeeper's hands, like it almost bounces in front of the goalkeeper. Brian Kennedy just deciding to kick out. Conor McKenna throwing a ball at a fella. Like it's all like, I mean, past evidence would almost suggest that this is all just part of the Tyrone plan. And when you see Fergal Logan coming out after the match being like, "Oh, we're really, really disappointed with that," you know, a lot of soul searching to be done. You're like, I don't trust you. I do not trust you one bit, Tyrone, for this to be the real Tyrone, except for the fact that there are all these departures. There were people saying, listen, this thing could fall to pieces eventually, that maybe this thing is real. But again,
Moyles been talking about it. It doesn't look good. And he's going to join us in about an hour's time. So we talked to him then, but it didn't look good. They looked like a rabble. They did not look like the All-Ireland champions who, you know, we've been through this together. We understand. We had the humiliation in Killarney last year. We had the COVID coming together. We had the kumbaya moment where we all got together and decided that we could do this thing. And then, you know, they see off that great young Kerry team, as lucky and all as that was. The Sun today, they do a debate every week. One person argues yes, one person argues no. The question this week was Tyrone's All-Ireland win a fluke? And there's a strong case being made by somebody in the Sun this morning. Yes, this was a fluky win. And you're like, Jesus, they're not doing... Because I remember after the game last year, somebody said to me, this Tyrone team aren't great, are they? This is a pretty handy All-Ireland for a team to win. I was like, no. Look at the team. Premier Field's really good. Those forwards there. I mean, look at the strength and depth they had. McShane couldn't even get in the team. And then you're looking at that performance going, what the hell happened last year? How did that team beat your Kerry for a start and then like casually dismiss Mayo in the All-Ireland final? How did it happen?
I do think that they were the best team in Ireland for those last few weeks of the season. Like, they were better than Kerry on the day, and they were better than Mayo.
Were they better than Kerry on the day? They won the game. I mean, I don't know. Was it a fluke that they won the All-Ireland last year?
Well, I think that at the very least they performed at a level above themselves that no other team in that last four managed to do last year. Like, is it a fluke that they managed to get through those games? Like, I think the one piece of fortune that really went with them last year was actually in the Donegal game, where there was a missed penalty and Michael Murphy getting sent off. And we saw on Sunday, you know, the effect of a red card in a big Ulster Championship game. I think that was maybe the one piece of fortune that they had.
Clifford.
But like, still, maybe
Clifford getting injured.
Yeah,
Kerry
Kerry
touching the ball on the ground when it was easier to just kick the ball into the back of the net.
Square ball. Yeah, there an off to the ground. I've never watched that game back, and I never will watch that game back. But that Tyrone performance, like
Kevin Coughlin's making the case that it was a fluke.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'd go that far. I think there was. I don't think they were the best.
No Keelan O'Connor from Mayo in the final to take that penalty.
But I think that as a collective and as a unit, I think that they were the best team in the competition last year. And given the structure of the competition with no backdoor and a relatively compressed calendar, I think that there was a potential for a team like that to go on a bit of a run and overachieve to a certain point. But like, they got the very, very best out of themselves last year as opposed to getting fluky, I would have thought.
Yeah, maybe.
And maybe it's just hard to do that back to back. Like, Tyrone have had problems in the past of going back to back, and let's see how they do in the back. Like the backdoor draw now is going to be pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean they
Mayo
could
and
get.
Armagh already in there.
Well, they're going to get. We know they're going to get loud, right? Hot balls, go.
Yeah, if Tyrone played Mayo in the morning, who are you backing?
I'm backing Mayo.
Yeah.
I'm backing everybody against Tyrone until they show me that they can come back from this.
But what about the whole 5-week layoff? Is this not?
I don't know about the whole 5-week layoff. Is that a good thing or a bad thing for a team in a bit of chaos like that? And what's 2 yellows, no suspension?
No suspension, unless back-to-back reds, but his first one doesn't count anymore, to be fair, which it doesn't. Well, Brian Kennedy, like it would be whoever is that solicitor who could get Brian Kennedy off this should become like a super solicitor if they manage to get him off, like a barrister.
QC maybe?
QC, sorry, that's the exact term. That's obviously quite blatant. They're not going to be able to get him off with McKenna, but presume it's the same as always, 2 yellows, you're not getting suspended. So they'll be close enough to full strength, assuming they've got a clean bill of health. And they had a long layoff last year for different reasons.
And a chip on their shoulder.
And a chip on their shoulder. And that chip is getting bigger and bigger by the minute. So I'm conscious, granted I'm looking at the evidence in front of my eyes and saying I don't believe that. I'm consciously discarding the empirical evidence and saying that there could be a kick left in this team. But the thing is, if they get unlucky with a draw and they draw Mayo, as we just said, you're backing Mayo to win that game because...
Where will that game be? Is Croker the only fair place for that to be, or is Clonus like?
Yeah, it's got to be Croke Park, isn't it? Or unless you do Breffni Park or something like that.
Maybe
there would be like an Ulster sort of. There would be a notion that it's an Ulster ground.
Yeah.
They can't really. Can they do the Hyde? Given Mayo played a lot of home games there.
No.
I think you have to. If it's Mayo at Tyrone, I love how we're just inventing qualifier draws here.
Yeah.
You have to put that game in Croke Park. There seems to be a bit of commotion over the Leinster semi-finals being in Croke Park.
There was some talk that they weren't going to be earlier in the year, right?
Yeah.
And so it'd be Dublin, Meath and Tullamore or something like that, would it?
I think so. Like I'm sure, as a Kildare person, you're like, put us in Croke Park. Yeah,
well, Kildare Westmeath can be in Croker, no problems.
Yeah, it's just the Dublin home advantage. Like Dublin will be in Croke Park now for the rest of the year is the other thing. Like I'm still interested to see how they. Like I was completely not blown away, but on Saturday night I was like, right, okay, this is absolutely sensational stuff from Dublin. You do get bogged down a little bit in the comparing scores with one another a bit too much, but I do think the Kildare results did actually kind of temper my getting carried away with Dublin a little bit, because I'm like, another county in Leinster just did that to another team. And on top of that then, like, I think we made the argument during the league, and this could be totally wrong, like we could be eating humble pie in a couple of weeks, but it did feel that Croke Park was not exactly the best place for this Dublin team to exist in the league, given the wide open spaces. But now you've got like a full stadium, you've got a full hill, and that's the whole point of a home ground that will benefit them. But also they have a supposedly we will now see maybe a better version of Johnny Cooper or a better position for Johnny Cooper and more of a defensive system, which was just completely absent in the league. And when you don't have that system in Croke Park, you can get exposed, as maybe we saw from Mayo in the league final and we've seen from other teams in the past.
Well, also Dublin are a different team now, right? Everybody's fit.
Yeah. Like it was just defensively that you would have had those issues about, but conceding 4 points in a single game of football is an absolutely remarkable tally. And they look angry. It was an FU performance from Dublin on Saturday night. Like, and Brian Fenton was pretty clear in that afterwards, saying that there was a bit of a chip in the shoulder from this Dublin team. And if they manage to maintain that over the next little while, it's just going to be a fascinating season. It's very hard. Like, I know Kildare won't want to hear it, but like I just can't. I'd be very surprised if it's not Kerry Dublin in that semi-final on that side. And I do think it'll be closer than it was maybe 2-3 years ago in that Leinster final if it is Dublin Kildare. But I'd still be backing them pretty healthily. Yeah,
you would back them to win the game, but like it's going to be a game. We've been lying to ourselves that they're going to get games in Leinster. And then last year they kind of got a game, and if they would have got games if everybody had a bit of more self-belief and confidence, because last year the team was definitely stuttering. This year it looks like Kildare could give them a game.
Yeah, and
the spread will be 4.5, I would say, at the moment.
The thing with Kildare as well then is if they obviously get to that Leinster final, then they'll only have one round of qualifiers to go through to get to the quarter-finals, and like, that would be a good return for Kildare this year to be competitive in a quarter-final, because, like, I mean, if they lose the Leinster final, then you're obviously up against one of the provincial winners if you get through to the last 8, and it's going to be an uphill task. But the fact that they're on that side of the draw and didn't get Dublin in the semi-final obviously gives them a much better chance.
I'd give them a chance against any of the provincial champions, I'd say, with the exception of Kerry at this stage. You'd say that they would be underdogs, but you'd give them a chance against any of the teams in Ulster, the two remaining teams in Connacht. No?
Yeah, like
they're in those games.
Yeah, no, they're in the games.
Donegal, you put them up against Monaghan, you put them up against Derry. Whoever wins Ulster at this stage, Monaghan, whatever. At Croke Park, I'm like, yeah, bring it on.
They're in the games. I think the team that they would want to get maybe is Roscommon if they beat Galway in the Connacht final. That was another.
Galway, I'd like to see them. I think they could.
That was another eye-catching score for the weekend. Obviously, is the Roscommon tally. And like, I mean, it's one of the reasons why I guess the Tailteann Cup has been brought into play, is these fairly striking tallies that teams are putting up in the provincial championships, and it's like, what's the point of this? And I guess one of the themes that's emerged from the weekend is, well, what's the point of the Tailteann Cup? Because a lot of people are now kind of hammering this, saying, well, people aren't going to hang around for this. Well, one of the few dissenting voices to the dissenting voices is actually Tony McEntee, who seemed pretty happy that the Tailteann Cup was going to happen when he was talking after Sligo's defeat at the weekend, and he seems pretty excited for it. On the other side of things, you have, I think, a good handful of people now who've spoken publicly saying this thing is not going to live up to any sort of hype, because there isn't going to be any hype for it.
Well, let's wait and see. I think that there are definitely counties who will take it more seriously than others, and the counties who do take it seriously in the long run might be the ones who make a leap forward. We'll see. Mark says, in fairness, Tyrone beat 4 Division 1 teams to win last year's All-Ireland. Think calling it a fluke is a bit harsh, in my opinion. Shane says they had the toughest run in Ulster, Cavan, Donegal and Monaghan. And Shifty Lad wants to know, should Cody be in the red? Well, Cody is not in the red. But so people are texting us in, by the way. It's part of our competition. OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Every week we're giving away a Gillette Labs shaving kit to be with a chance of winning. Just let us know who you think should make the performance rankings. The best place to enter is the Off the Ball Instagram page. You'll see the comments box in our story. But you can also, this morning live, enter by leaving a comment either on YouTube or using the hashtag OTBAM. Cody's not in the red. Cody's kind of maybe in the amber, is he on?
Well, handshakes are in the amber today, because all of the great handshakes of all time have been left in the wake of a handshake at the weekend, while that handshake was really good. So I can't really decide whether to put this in the good or the bad. So it's in the amber. So I'm sure people have been looking forward to this, but needless to say, I've put together my top 7 favourite handshake moments in the history of society. We'll go through this list before we get into Brian Cody. At number 7 is the Chelsea mascot with Stephen Gerrard a few years ago, giving him selling him a pup with the handshake. At number 6 is the Creation of Adam by Michelangelo, clear under extension, also a snub of a handshake. Then our final snub, and at number 5 is John Terry Wayne Bridge, one of the best out-and-out handshake snubs of all time. As we move into actual handshakes, in at number 4 is Truman, Churchill, Stalin at the Potsdam Conference, post-war peace, blah, blah, blah. But the main thing here is that it's a 3-way handshake, which was a historical moment. Number 3 is Mick McCarthy, Roy Keane. There has never been post-war peace in Irish football after this moment, really. It was a precursor to one of the most dramatic moments in history. At number 2 is the Predator handshake, the biggest handshake meme in modern history. Carl Weathers, Arnold Schwarzenegger doing their thing. And at number 1 is, of course, Brian Cody and Henry Shefflin. Ice cold, shivers down the spine of Henry Shefflin, I thought. But actually, Henry Shefflin gives him the old look back after Brian Cody walks away, and I think he handled it pretty well. What were you feeling? Were you feeling sad when you saw this handshake?
I think it's very interesting. I think Cody said afterwards, no big deal. But like, if it's no big deal, what's going on? I think Henry Shefflin was like, well, he had been through a lot of emotion in that previous 60 seconds. Like, he spoke about thinking about everything that has happened to his family and to the wider Galway GAA community, and then they score free against his old county, against the manager he won 10 All-Irelands for, and he's like, and it's quick, and then he turns away, and then he's dragged back, and then there's a stare, and there's something mouthed. Is there something? Was there something said?
There was.
We don't know what it was.
No.
And I presume it was loud enough to hear, but we'll never know unless everybody's mic'd up,
or release the footage. I want to see, like, is the
3
behind
or 4 different angles.
Yeah, And we were only getting...
They kind of missed the goal in lifetime. Did you see that? They missed the winning, the equalising goal for Kilkenny. The angle was too close, and then they pulled out and the ball was in the back of the net, and the commentary was like, saved! And Dygon's gone, no, it's in the back of the net, Marty. It's in the back of the net. And they're like, oh, not saved. The sides are level. Like, oh, Jesus. So it was wild. It was the wildest end to a match that we're not talking about. Like, there have been wild ends to all of the Leinster Championship matches with Leinster's like, definitely, hey everybody, there's a championship over here. It's really good. I realise that you're looking at the Munster Championship and thinking this is a different sport they're playing, but we're really good too. Every single game has ended in some weird thing. And then the handshake, which is like, people are, I think, not making too much of a big deal of it because, as Henry Shefflin points out, this is still sport. We love it, but it's just a game. There are far more important things in life. And yet, what was Cody at? What was he doing? What do we think?
Did he just maybe lose his train of thought? I was like, oh, sorry, just hung in there a little bit too long.
But there's definitely
there's a tug. It's semi-aggressive, I think. Again, I'd just like to see what the whole context was. I'd love to see the sideline right beforehand.
Like, were they calling each other? Did somebody turn around, not go first? There's a lot of things which might seem like an imagined thing, and then afterwards you're in the dressing room. So sorry, that's just a bit. I mean, I was trying to find the referee because I wanted to go and have a word with him about what had happened. Like, I did think it was a free in real time, by the way.
Yeah,
when you watch the slow down replay, like it looks like a free if you're just turning around. So you're following the ball, and then you see smack. It's like, did he go in through the back of him? Is that legal? I'm not sure. It looks like a free. I'm giving the free. Should have given the free.
I think if that's a free at any other point in the game, it's not even a mini talking point. There's maybe a very mild murmur from the crowd who's given against. Somebody on the Sunday game said it was man, ball and all, if I'm not misquoting. That's a free. I thought for sure. I didn't want it to be. I didn't want it to be a free. I wanted the ref to be like, just blow the full time whistle as a man just gets taken out in the middle of the air, because I wanted the late goal to mean something. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case, and the ref made the correct decision at the end.
And then what a nice call free. What a nice call. Not close, not just sneaking in.
Yeah, for modern hurlers, it's not a gimme, but it's with that pressure, of course, it's not. But it should be something that he's scoring. Kilkenny have notched up a couple of really dramatic late goals that are now going to be lost in time. Nobody will ever remember. Maybe they'll remember the Cork one last year, but it feels like it's in the space of 3-4 championship games. They've put together some incredible late salvos, like Cork in the semi-final last year, and then Sunday against Galway, and they lose both games in the end. So there's definitely a huge kick in this Kilkenny team. It's just that they maybe have a bit more quality to get their noses in front earlier in games. I'd love to see this matchup again. I'd love to see Cody against Shefflin again for obvious reasons. To be honest with you, my initial thought on the handshake was no big deal. It's in slow motion. If you played that in real time, it wouldn't be so dramatic. And then there was a longer clip that came out, and I was like, oh, hold on a minute, this actually is.
Yeah.
This actually is kind of something. So I don't know.
There must be fan footage somewhere.
Can I speculate wildly here? What I think might have just happened was two managers around the sideline. That late free was pretty controversial. One of the managers might have been absolute free. The other one would have been absolutely not a free. Yeah. There's a little bit of a disagreement there with expletives thrown in, and then you have to shake each other's hands literally seconds after that.
Yeah.
And that that is why there was a little bit of tension. Of course, it's the most important handshake in the history of society, but maybe not.
Yeah. Either that or the beef is real. That's the other alternative here, is that actually,
let's go with beef is real.
I mean, there is an alternative reality where there's these two men drove this thing on. This is Keane Ferguson. We don't know. This could be Keane Ferguson. But without the falling out.
Yeah, and also where would the falling out have been? They were on each other's side for the entire thing. Everything we've heard from people within the Kilkenny team would say that Shefflin was one of Cody's favourite people.
Well,
Tommy Walsh was number one, yeah. But Henry Shefflin was a close second.
Yeah, that all makes sense. Well, Tommy didn't get picked at the end either,
Well, that's true, but I'd imagine they'd have have a pretty good relationship. So I don't think that there is a deeper sort of thing there. And but it was just a great image.
How is Cork hurling not in the red? The second biggest supported team in the country. You have no idea of the sense of anger from the Cork public down here at the moment. And Jared says, lads, I think Clare aren't getting the credit again for beating Cork once again. It's all about how bad Cork were.
Well, it's worth talking about this now because there's a couple of other things that are just taking Clare's limelight in the green here. Obviously this game, again, kind of lost in time because it wasn't live on terrestrial television on Sunday at the same time as the other hurling match. But Clare were awesome again, and I think the scoreline put a bit of a gloss on it from Cork's perspective at the end. It seems like Cork just can't get their head around what's going on at the moment, that it feels like they maybe even have slipped a little bit backwards compared to last year. And, you know, this whole notion going into the All-Ireland last year that Cork were the pretenders to the throne and ready to take it, I think that notion's taken quite a hammering over the last little while, and there's going to be, I'm not sure, I was going to say inquest, but like there will certainly be a lot of noise when they don't get out of this group, because it will be a hell of a comeback now from this position for them to get out of this group.
It's impossible.
It's close to it, yeah. Very, very difficult for them at this point. It's like, so, well, in fairness, they have already got the Limerick fixture out of the way. Clare obviously do have to play Limerick, so like I think Clare, for people who watch a lot of Clare, will not be the surprise package of the year, but for people who didn't see a lot of Clare in the spring, I think this probably feels like a bit of a surprise. I wouldn't have had them getting out of...
It's not impossible, obviously. It's not impossible. You know, it's still very possible. But, like, can they dig themselves out of the hole they're in? I don't think so. That's what I think is impossible.
Unless maybe you like read into the kick at the end of the game, which suggests that there's still a lot of fight in the group. But
yeah, fight in the group, but the game is over, you know?
Yeah.
The game is over at not at half-time, because the gap at the end is the same as the half-time gap, but they just let the gap get too big in the first half. I know it's hurling and you score 3 quick goals, but like you need 3 quick goals to get yourself back in the game. You've given yourselves an absolute mountain to climb. If you're Limerick, that's fair enough because you know you can do that, but you're not Limerick. You're Cork, who have not won anything for decades now. So I don't know, bit of a disaster. We'll do a deep dive on that this week, I think.
Yeah, we will. We will move on to the green, and in second place this week, we'll just quickly touch on Ronnie OSullivans, who won his 7th world title last night. We were talking about handshakes and embraces. His hug with Judd Trump lasted, I want to say, 90 seconds to 2 minutes.
It was definitely,
it was like,
it felt a little, it's like, this is getting uncomfortable now. There's, like, what, is he... was it cover from crying? Was it, I don't know. It was nice, but it was definitely like we were watching and going... everybody has come down to join him. His kids are there. Various other members of the extended entourage are there, and it's like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Hazel Irvin is doing her bits, and she's like, how long am I going to have to fill here for? I'm going to speak to Judd Trump now, any second now. What emotional scenes we're seeing here. Ronnie OSullivans won his 7th. And then she's like, as all commentators do when they're filling, it's like, I have some stats to hand. More centuries in this tournament than we've ever seen before. Blah, 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 blah. What? They're still going?
Yeah, it was two lads having a DMC in the smoking area is what it felt like for a while. But obviously it was nice and heartwarming as opposed to, you know, disgusting, to be honest. And I think there was like a sense of Ronnie just getting carried away with how emotional he felt. And it possibly didn't really strike him how emotionally he would feel at the end of this. And I'm kind of surprised at how sentimental Ronnie was at the end of it, which is obviously, again, absolutely brilliant to see, because it kind of felt to me for a while in his career over the last maybe 7-8 years that, you know, he didn't really care about records or getting to 7 or potentially getting to 8, which I think he will do at some point over the next couple of years. But I think maybe he was just using that as his public pronouncements in a way to try and lessen the pressure on himself, and, you know, the idea of getting carried away with records is never going to lead to success. But I think now what's great is that you can quantify Ronnie OSullivans as the greatest in his sport. Like, it felt as well for a while as if it would be like a Tiger Woods situation where, you know, Tiger is obviously the best of all time, but he's not going to have the most majors at the end of his career. Kind of felt like Ronnie was going to be in a similar situation. Whereas I'm happy that that's not the case anymore. You can say he's got, he's obviously tied at the top now at 7. He will go one clear, but I think you can say, he is comfortably the greatest of all time. And I think maybe it just helps. It just helps when you're having that conversation. There's obviously murkier waters when it comes to like the tennis conversation, in men's tennis at least, about who actually is the greatest of all time. Team sports is a little bit harder to quantify, but I think last night it was a bit of a sigh of relief for people who have watched Ronnie for his entire career and know that he was always going to go down as the best ever.
Yeah, I don't know about the Tiger Woods thing. We can come back to that. But you're dead right. Like, I think everybody felt like Ronnie OSullivans was the most gifted of this or any other generation and wasn't going to quite reach the level that he could have reached. But he's got there now. And I don't know, maybe if Stephen Hendry broke his cue, isn't that what happened to him? There was like a magic power associated with his cue and it got broken and he was never the same player again.
Yeah.
So who knows? Like,
on an airplane, wasn't it?
Yeah, and the other thing is like Hendry's period, which was kind of boring at the time, but in retrospect was absolutely amazing, where you are absolutely dominant the way you are for that period, and it's such a condensed period. Like there is something truly great in that, and I think somebody matching that, like it took all this time for Ronnie OSullivans to match what Stephen Hendry did. It elevates Hendry's achievement, like, and this is always my point with the Limerick hurlers need someone to come along and be great at the same time as them for us to go, you are truly one of the all-time great teams. They're already one of the great teams, right? They're a great team. Nothing's ever going to take that away from them. But are they all-time great? We're not sure. They might be, and they're not finished yet. But there's no doubt Ronnie OSullivans, all-time great. Stephen Hendry also all-time great.
Yeah, and a rival certainly kind of elevates anybody to that level. And I think Ronnie OSullivans probably, when he points to Judd Trump last night, is like, I've just beaten an incredible person in this final. Like, top of the performance rankings this morning, absolutely no prizes for guessing this one. It is, of course, Katie Taylor. And there's like a billion different things you can say about what happened on Saturday night. The thing that's kind of like striking me this morning is that Saturday night at Madison Square Garden kind of feels like a Robbie Brady goal moment, which I didn't see in the flesh, or an Italia 90 moment, which I just kind of wasn't alive for. And it kind of feels like right in that level, one of those that made you really, really want to be there or be around for that moment. One of those that if you were in the arena on Saturday night, you'd be banging on about for a long, long time, and rightly so. Probably more closer to the point is the fact that it kind of feels like just another Katie Taylor moment. It kind of feels like 2012. It feels like the wave of emotion that everybody would have felt when she won a gold medal for Ireland in 2012. And that's just what she does now. She will go down in history as somebody who has a collection of truly historical Irish moments, not just sporting moments, Irish moments, which it's very, very hard to think if there's anybody with a number of them on their CV, just like Katie Taylor does. Maybe you can say like someone like Jack Charlton will be associated with those sort of memories over a period of time. But I think Katie Taylor is absolutely in that rarefied company. And again, like, I mean, you can talk about the fight. The fight was absolutely incredible. It was a ridiculous spectacle. And I think there is this notion that, you know, you go through all the tweets and the reaction to it from people who you wouldn't have ordinarily thought of as Katie Taylor fans. And I think that probably adds to it a little bit. But yeah, just an incredible night. Very, very jealous of everybody who was there.
There's two things really in terms of, like, you kind of want her to retire because she's reached the apex again, and boxing is such a brutal sport, and we're really beginning to learn about the difficulties that people have later in life when you have a number of concussions, and each of those punches is a potential concussion. So, like, on a personal level for her, you really want her to stop now because there's no more mountains for her to climb. And at the same time, from a sporting perspective, if they were to fight again in Madison Square Garden and then she was to have a homecoming, that would be the type of, like, financial security that very few Irish sports people get. So, you know, there's that balance to be struck between what kind of a middle age do fighters have versus the moment. This is the moment now where there's a crossover here, where when you have Dwayne Rock and you're on DAZN and ESPN are covering it, it's like a new level of superstardom in the United States where they're talking about this is saving boxing. So big opportunities for her, and hopefully they're endorsement opportunities as opposed to fight opportunities that she can make the bank from that. But yeah, an incredible achievement really. And the comeback victory as well is the other aspect of that like you tough it out and you win through moments of real physical exhaustion is so incredible. So,
do you think she was done?
I mean, at various stages in the past, there have been bits in fights where you're like, oof, I don't know, and then it's like always comes back. So,
this was a level above, though. Anything that maybe
totally,
Perfume put her through.
Yeah.
Like I was full sure she was finished. Like, absolutely. I just thought it was like any punch now, she's going down. And I think maybe when we kind of like have had analysts on over the last little while talking about Katie Taylor, it's like, does she have the power to knock an opponent out? And I think maybe we probably underappreciated a little bit, given maybe she's been so dominant in some fights, the fact that she is so hard to knock out herself. And again, it's just not something that we've seen her in a position to too much, because she's clearly the greatest. So it's very, very hard to find out when she's in that position. But she was in that position on Saturday night, and maybe she hadn't felt maybe she didn't know herself how she would stand up to that sort of pressure until Saturday night. Like I'm sure that most of her sparring partners weren't putting as much pressure on her as Amanda Serrano was on Saturday night. So yeah, I thought she was dust, but that just adds to the whole craziness of the night.
The Star reporting this morning that the cops have said that if they want to fight in Croker, they can fight in Croker. The security threat based on the Kinahan-Hutch feud is over, or diminished to the point where it wouldn't be an issue.
You do that now, though. You're thinking another Garden fight and then back to Dublin?
Yeah, because the time is going to... It needs to be
winter.
It needs to be 12 o'clock at night for a US audience if you're going to do serious pay-per-view numbers.
Why though? I mean, the Fury fight was on at what time the previous week?
Was it
11? It was at our time. And I mean, Klitschko Joshua, I remember, was definitely all the UK fights are at our time. So why would an Irish fight have to go later?
Well, I don't know. I think that the Fury fight, Fury is more established selling pay-per-views. Maybe it wouldn't be pay-per-view, would it? In the States, it would just be on its subscription. So I don't know. I mean, I think that if they can, to be honest, I think that if she can get through one more fight at this level and then come home and have a homecoming against somebody who's easy, that would be the
you want to sell tickets, though. I mean, if it's Taylor Serrano, you have people who will want to fly to Dublin to watch that fight, not just Irish people. And I think that you've got to capitalise on what happened at the weekend by getting this thing turned around pretty soon. I think that I'm not sure. I think this was a brilliant sporting event, and people want to see this again. And as I just said, we all missed out. We all have FOMO because we weren't in the Garden. Anybody who wasn't there will be like, okay, got to get a ticket for this. I just think marketing-wise, I think in terms of her career, I think it just makes sense to do this thing now. I hadn't realised that. I actually hadn't seen that line about the security threat, because I just assumed it was still maybe pie-in-the-sky stuff that suggested Ireland could host a boxing fight.
I don't think so. I think most of that is over for now. 12 minutes past 8. That's this week's performance rankings.
OTB AM's performance rankings with Gillette.
Yeah, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to be back talking football with David Meyler next.
I fear I'm going to spend the next 10 years talking about Declan Rice and wondering what might have been from an Irish point of view, because he's just so goddamn good. We saw in that first half, it feels as though he's everything right now. The pace that he had on 2 or 3 occasions to get back and cover, his range of passing, which we saw for the first goal. There's very little as a central midfielder he can't do right now.
Yeah, I think he has power. I think his physical ability is there for all to see. He's really matured. He looks like has a presence about him now. That he's probably 6'1", 6'2", but he looks it. Powerful, but his awareness has improved a lot, and his range of passing has improved a lot. And you know what? He punches passes through now, 20-yard passes where he's taking it off the back four and he's punching it into those front three of West Ham that you're talking about. It is it's an absolute shame, and I don't know how we're in a situation where you've played him in friendlies, but we haven't been able to get minutes in it.
Don't do it to yourself.
And because I think what a player he would have been for Ireland, and what a player he's turning out to be for England. But West Ham will do well to hold on to him, and like you said, shows the importance of making sure that they qualify for these tournaments. But he's by far better than the 2 centre midfielders that Arsenal have. And
is he a player you look at and think, quite literally, any team in the Premier League, he would improve them in midfield?
Yeah, Rodri does his role for Man City. Rice could, I know Man City were interested in him a couple of years ago, and Rice could do that role, especially with Fabinho moving on Fernandinho, moving on in the summer.
Well, has he got more than Rodri? Because now Rodri,
I know Giles was critical of
I was just going to say, he did score in the last couple of games. He was on to 5 goals this season, but what John Giles was saying is, does he ever set up a goal?
Yeah.
I was making the point, he's the guy who provides the pass, which was what Declan Rice did today. He provided the pass for Southcheck. But does Rice have more to his game than a Rodri, which is probably the position he'd go into if he went to Manchester City?
I don't know. It's a tough one. You'd like to see him in that team with all that firepower around him and that ability around him. That, you know, when he is giving it to De Bruyne or Sterling or even Grealish, another one that we've missed out on. That, you know, they're going to create at the top end of the pitch. So, like you said, it's the pass before the assist.
Much like Jack Grealish, it could be a similar situation though, going to Manchester City, in that everything at West Ham today went through Rice. So every time Noble got the ball, the first thing he did was give it to Declan Rice, whereas actually you're the guy having to give it to De Bruyne, to Foden, rather than Bin. So you're a step further back in the process almost.
Yeah, but I think you can tell that he's a team player and they'd be willing to do that, and they call it like carrying the water for them. No problem. I think he's able to do that, but, you know, then he has the quality to step in and play as well. Like, I think, like you said, there's not a team in the Premiership that he doesn't probably strengthen their squad, first of all, and you go as far as saying he's strengthening their first 11.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
The greatest league in the world is back.
Every Friday night after the League of Ireland games, a place for you to come to give your opinion to Vane. There's a little button down on the left-hand corner where you can say that you want to talk. And Johnny, you're just going to have to mute yourself because you're ruining it for everybody.
I can't. I'm still ruining it, am I?
You are, yes.
We're going to talk about Waterford FC now. Let's change to the real First Division now.
For immediate reaction from around the grounds, catch League of Ireland late night, Friday nights at 10 on Twitter Spaces. Follow @OffTheBall.
This is Sport Ireland Campus, and here is where it all starts. From the little ones learning to the high-performance athletes leading. Here we go to play, to practice, to progress. Here is where communities and the nation come together to compete, to win, and to belong. Here we go to the next level, then on to the world stage. This is Sport Ireland Campus, and here we go. Visit sportirelandcampus.ie to be a part of it.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
You had Graham Gartland talking about Declan Rice into the ad break there. If you want to get in touch with us this morning, 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number, or you can always use the hashtag OTBAM. Now, delighted to say David Meyler is with us to look back at the weekend's football and ahead tonight as well. David, good morning to you. How are you getting on?
Good morning, gents.
I think we should start with the relegation battle, because what looked like was going to be fairly pedestrian has exploded into life over the last few weeks. Burnley sacked Sean Dyche, and we all thought, well, that's a panic move, and they've won their last 3 games and they've looked pretty good. It looked for a while like Everton were just going to go out with a whimper, and all of a sudden there's life in the old dog yet. Leeds, who looked safe 4 or 5 weeks ago, are crashing to earth really quickly. So there's a world now where it looks like both Burnley and Everton might survive.
It does. Obviously, you know, Burnley winning and then Everton playing Chelsea. I did watch Chelsea against United, and I thought they'd lacked that clinical edge, and you saw Tuchel talking about it after, saying, you know, they got into great areas, a decisive pass, whatever. And you kind of, it's been like, it's very difficult to criticise Chelsea because they won the Champions League last year, but you knew that they needed that number 9 to, you know, put the ball in the back of the net. They signed Lukaku. That's been one of the worst signings in Premier League history. And even when they went to, you know, Everton, of course, Everton now are going to get, you know, they have to rally behind the group. But Chelsea just kind of look flat. They're in no man's land. They've kind of nailed down third. Yes, they've got, you know, the FA Cup final to play against Liverpool. But it was kind of one of those, Everton just had to take the fight to them. You've seen with the scenes outside the ground, with the fans kind of making it this incredible atmosphere. The whole stadium was bouncing. And, you know, the players responded to that. And, you know, it was a hell of a performance. And, you know, their home form has been all right all season. And that's what's, you know, inevitably going to keep them up if they are going to stay up. They have to get points at Goodison Park. They've got some winnable games there, and I think they've got Watford away as well. So like Leeds now, Leeds are under serious pressure. You know, Burnley, like you said, have won some games. So it is tightening up. I know Everton have the game in hand. If they could get 3 points in that, it just, you know, Leeds are the one that's on, you know, the descent. They're on the way down, and they could get caught out.
It's almost impossible to stop one of those runs at this stage of a season when you're in it. Like, we've seen great escapes in the past. Yeah, Villa, when they had Grealish, like, they went on a run like Burnley are on at the moment. And it's more easy to maintain one of those crazy runs than it is to actually arrest the pattern that Leeds are in at the moment. Is that fair?
Yes and no, because there's a reason why you are down the bottom of the table. You've not been able to win games. So albeit Burnley have you'd say turned a corner with the wins that they've had. Everton obviously winning. Both teams are very capable of going out and not performing again. Of course, I know they're fighting for their lives. I've been in similar situations where you do get a result and you kind of think, okay, we can reproduce this. But every game is slightly different. Whether it be the time of kickoff, travelling away, what ground you're playing at, etc. So, you look at the best example is Everton. You're looking kind of where has that performance been, for a long time, and don't get me wrong, I know Frank has, kind of changed up the style that was highlighted in Monday Night Football. But Everton are capable of going and not putting in another good performance. Likewise, Burnley, Leeds, of course, look, they're playing Manchester City, which is always difficult. But it's so difficult to say you can continue this run of form, but it just doesn't work like that. And, you have to, it's the oldest and worst cliche in football. They have to take one game at a time. Now, Everton have the game in hand. They can sort that out and kind of get a result. Then the pressure will start to crank on the other teams. Now, it's better to be going into your next game in good form, but it really does kind of go out the window. You have to take each game on its merit, and, you have to go up against your opponent. You have to give it everything.
What does a performance like that actually do to the mindset of Everton, where everybody's written you off? It feels like the situation is desperate, and then all of a sudden something happens. You get a bit of a spark. You get that performance. The fans, I think it's really important. Watching Seamus Coleman speak afterwards about, his entire career there at Goodison Park and rarely experiencing an occasion like that. It's so weird. But when crisis happens, the community comes together, and if they dig it out from here, who knows what will happen. But what does something like that do to a dressing room? Does it supercharge everybody, or because you obviously, and the cliche is true about game to game, does it do nothing in some ways either?
I think it does a lot. It's like any walk of life. Like you look at it now, obviously it's Tuesday morning, whatever. If you have a good weekend, you have a nice time or whatever job you're in, you go in Monday morning, you're kind of refreshed and you're looking forward to the week. When you're in a slump, it's difficult to come out of that. Certainly, that's no different to professional football. You look at Everton, when they've had tough results, going into training on a Monday morning, trying to prepare for a game, everyone's a little bit flat. You're thinking, oh, are we ever going to be able to turn this around? There's moaning, there's groaning, But when you get a win like that, the lift, as you said there when Seamus spoke after, the fans are going home happy. They're probably hanging around after to, the parents who brought their kids to meet players. There's that little bit of a buzz, there's that bit of a lift. And then the players come into training, to start the next week, looking forward to the next game where you're just on it and you're happy to be there. You're not looking around going, oh my God, we could be relegated. This is going to be the end of the world or whatever. There's that buzz and a kick. It can kickstart you. Now, Everton have to go and do that again in the next game. They have to kick on again and, reproduce a performance like that and get a result. Even watching Chelsea the other day, I never felt like it was one of those games, we as, former professionals, you look back and you always have those moments. I often highlight, the Wales game when we played away with Ireland. I never felt like Wales were going to score. I even looking at that the other day, I know Pickford had, incredible save he made. I just felt like this is Everton's game to win. They're going to win it. Everything was going their way. You seen Damari Gray making tackles and blocks, which you wouldn't really associate with, with your flair players. It was just one of those games where everything was kind of going for them and they were fighting tooth and nail, but they kind of deserved to win it. So that when you can get a win like that over the line against one of the top clubs, it just breeds confidence into the group. Now they have to build on that and go into the next game and reproduce another performance to get another result.
In terms of the title race then, for Liverpool, all of these games are potential banana skins at this point. Some of them are going to be easier and more routine than others. On the face of it, it looked like perhaps at the weekend was going to be one of those banana skins. But again, they managed to make it routine, relatively routine.
Yeah, the first half was very comfortable. Obviously, getting the goal. They looked, fully in control. They just kept the ball. They moved it well. But the start of the second half, I was biting my nails because Liverpool were making so many unforced errors. They weren't keeping possession. They were just inviting Newcastle back into the game. And of course, look, Newcastle, they've been fantastic since, Eddie Howe has turned the corner. You look at the success they've had. What are they up to now? 9th in the table. So then Newcastle started to huff and puff. And there was moments when you did worry and you were just saying, please, can Liverpool just get the second goal to put this game to bed? But, Jurgen obviously made 5 changes, which shows you what he thinks of, the Champions League, the second tie, which is obviously tonight. He did use the squad, which was very interesting. You are 2-0 up, but he did make 5 changes. But Liverpool got the job done, albeit it wasn't as comfortable in the second half. But, it's 3 points and they just this machine keeps going.
James Milner obviously made a bit of a rare start at the age of 36, played really well. Jurgen Klopp spoke about his importance after the game. Like, you obviously speak to Jordan Henderson quite a bit. Have you ever got a sense of how important Milner is, even though, Henderson is captain and Van Dijk obviously is a massive leader in that dressing room, but I presume Milner, just, I guess, given the experience that he has, is as important than the lads when it comes to leading that dressing room?
Yeah, well, look, I don't want to bring them into it, but United are a great example. You look at the United changing room, you kind of look at the leaders they have in there, and then you compare that to Liverpool. And, like, obviously, as you said there, right, Jordan's captain, James is vice captain, but then you've got Scottish captain, left back, you've got the Dutch captain, centre back, Matip is captain. Okay, Trent, he's not a bad lad, he's a good lad, works hard. Like, I think then you obviously go to the front line, like Salah's the Egyptian captain, Mane's the Senegalese captain. They just have captains everywhere, and it's kind of a changing room that has been built over time with these leaders. But that is, Jordan and James have been, pivotal to that. They are the two that kind of lead the group. You always look at, even when, Adam Lallana left, if you remember, Jurgen spoke about how Adam, James and Jordan had kind of ran everything. They had looked after everyone and whatever. They were huge. They are huge characters in that group. And James is no doubt, like, look, it'll be frustrating for him. He's probably, a lad who wants to play every game. He's incredibly fit. He's still, you've seen the performance against Newcastle. He's still well capable of doing a job in midfield in the Premier League. But I think himself and Jordan have this nice dynamic where, they do kind of run the changing room, but then again, it's probably not a difficult changing room to run because there's so many top professionals who are captains with their international teams that there's this beautiful, harmony between the group that they don't let standards slip. I've been fortunate enough to watch training a few times, and you just see them all. They're just on top of one another. Like, training's always at such a high level, and that's why they're able to, over these past few years, go to toe-to-toe at Manchester City. And that's testament to the type of lads there.
What do you expect from the game tonight then?
Oh, I don't know. I was very disappointed with Villarreal, obviously happy from a Liverpool perspective. They kind of sat in. I think they kind of tried to frustrate Liverpool and try and nick, goal on the counter-attack. They never kind of got a grip to the game. Obviously now at home, the old yellow submarine, they call it, their fans are going to be out. They're going to have to go and, try and take Liverpool on. I can't see them doing it in the opening 20 minutes. I can see them probably huffing and puffing and late on the first half, and then second half they're going to have to go for it. That should suit Liverpool, certainly in the way they play. They're more than comfortable, if a team sits in, keeping the ball, knocking it around. But if a team steps onto Liverpool with the front three, I expect Salah to come straight back in tonight. You probably play Mane and Diaz. With those front three, the pace they have, the precision, everything, it's just goals there for them. So if Villarreal do come after Liverpool, I can see them being picked off. But Liverpool have obviously been able to keep a number of clean sheets across, the Premier League and the Champions League. So it's going to be one of those games. I think that it's going to be a bit nervy, but I do feel Liverpool will score. And I think after the first leg, I think they have that cushion of the two goal lead. So I think they'll be fine.
The one thing is that Champions League semi-finals, there's always a little bit of something happens. Like if you're Villarreal, you want to be agents of chaos particularly maybe not in the first 20 minutes, but straight away after that. So like, and with no away goals, I don't really buy into the whole 2-0 lead's one of the worst leads in football. But like, I expect something to happen from Villarreal. I expect them to try something tonight.
Yeah, they will. You've no doubt that Unai Emery has a game plan. You could probably see them sitting in and then trying to catch Liverpool with the high line, something along those lines where they're switching balls, say from the right side, trying to catch out Trent, who's further forward, or likewise the opposite side, try and get in down the sides of them. It'll be interesting to see. I imagine Kanate will probably start with Van Dijk. Then they've got to do something like that, because if they try and go toe-to-toe passing, we've seen in the first leg Liverpool's pressing. They just get after players. They're able to win the ball back high up. I saw something really interesting recently with Ragnick speaking about Liverpool's front three, which at the time would have been Mane, Firmino and Salah. And he said Jurgen's actually turned them into ball-winning forward players. What he means by that is they're actually tackling players. It's not just a case of high pressing where you're forcing your opponent into an error. They're actually tackling players, and it is true that Jurgen has turned them into. If you look at the amount of tackles that Mane, Diaz, Salah do, they win the ball in those high positions. And if Villarreal start to be comfortable and try and build up and play out from the back, then they will get caught, because these fellas are just incredible at what they do, and it's just a well-oiled machine that just keeps going. So I expect Liverpool to come through it, but Villarreal they're gonna make it difficult. They're no mugs. They obviously had great results over Bayern Munich and Juventus and
that. The title race then, obviously a little bit of pressure on Man City, and then the pressure's over really, really quickly, because they are just finding their groove at the moment and finding things pretty easy. Like, this is the concern, I suspect, if you're a Liverpool fan, is that you can't really see a case to be made for anybody to stop City on the league front.
No. I think I was on a week or two ago, and I got asked the same question. I just can't see either team losing the Premier League. That's the truth. Like, I know Liverpool have got Spurs coming up, which would be seen as probably the most difficult of both sets of fixtures. I fully expect Liverpool to come through that, but like City they just turn out results. They're just unstoppable. Like I said, Liverpool are a well-oiled machine. So are Man City. You look at the resurgence of Jesus, the amount of goals he scored in the last few weeks, going back to when he came back into the team against Liverpool. They just have incredible squads, and City, it's kind of like, oh, you're going against Leeds, who they don't. I know they beat them 7-0 earlier on this season. They didn't have a good record against Leeds. They'd lost twice and drawn twice in the last 4 before the 7-0 victory. So it's kind of one of them. You're wondering, oh, will it be a tough game? And then City just go out and pull them apart. And I see Manchester City, and I just feel that both teams will end up winning the remaining fixtures. And unfortunately, Liverpool will come up short.
If you're Pep, are you doing everything to try and appease Gabriel Jesus to make sure he stays at the club, or at least don't sell him to a Premier League rival?
It's an interesting one, because the timing of it was kind of weird, and then Jesus has kind of come back in, and he's been in fantastic form. I think Pep has always kind of had a question mark over him as that number 9. It kind of looked at early days that he was the natural progression to Aguero, but he simply doesn't score enough goals to be, in Aguero's category. I know he scored a lot recently, but he started deploying him off wings in different games. Obviously, there's the link with Arsenal. I think he'd be a good signing for Arsenal. Obviously, then there's the relationship between Pep and Arteta that he might, look after his own mate. I think there's obviously been the talk of Haaland. Is he coming? Who knows? But I think with Jesus, his race is ran. I really do. I don't think he'll see himself as starting week in, week out. Albeit, he's come in for the last few games, but he knows deep down that start the next season, whether City get Haaland or not, he's not going to turn out 40, 45 games this or next season. So I feel he'll probably want to go, and be someone's number 9 playing week in, week out, and maybe Arsenal is the best solution for him.
Just one of the other things from the Manchester City game before we let you go, John Giles was on last Thursday night chatting about Rodri and saying that he'd like to see him create a few more goals or be involved in the goals a little bit more, and then sure enough after 13 minutes on Saturday he scores a goal. It's an interesting one, David, because I guess Giles' perspective on it would be that defensive midfielders, there should be no problem with them contributing to the attack. They should be contributing to the attack, but it feels maybe the modern defensive midfielder, that's not really their role at all. Like, where is the truth in all that?
I fully understand where John is coming from. Certainly in terms of, you know, Rodri and the team he plays in, style of play they have. But I often wonder, you know, why has Pep got him as the 6? Why has Pep used him in that role, and what is his role in that team? Of course, you could highlight probably he should get more assists. Certainly because City pin teams in, but I think he's just there to take them over. I think he's there. Rodri's role in the team, if you look at him, he's very composed. He's very, you know, comfortable on the ball. He almost reminds me of, you know, if you remember Pep's team back in the 2010 era, he's there, Busquets. And obviously Busquets was labelled the same thing, doesn't have enough assists, doesn't have enough goals. But I think Pep doesn't care about him scoring or assisting. I think it's more about his role within the team, that he has to be the one who's always available for the ball, who can sustain attacks, who can switch play, who can keep things going. And if, you know, the opposition do win the ball in the counter-attack, Rodri's there to break it up. I understand where he's coming from, that you want your midfielders to score more goals and assists. Obviously, I heard there just before I joined about Declan Rice, that's something that's been labelled at him. Could he score more goals and, you know, assist more? But I look at it that Pep is probably looking, I'm going, you're completely fine in what you're doing. I'm very happy with you. You don't need more goals. You don't need more assists. Keep doing what you're doing. And look, they've been so successful. Of course, I know they haven't won the Champions League, but certainly in terms of their domestic cups, the Premier Leagues, they've been. So you can cut it up two ways. Like, should the midfielder, should the 6 be scoring more goals, assisting more? Of course, yeah, you'd like that, but inevitably it comes down to what the manager wants, and the manager is happy with them because he picks them week in, week out.
All right, David Meyler, we'll let you go. Thanks a million. Cheers.
Cheers, gents.
David Meyler giving us some thoughts on the weekend's football. What do you expect to happen tonight? Is it routine? No chaos? Like, Champions League semi-finals have traditionally given us some weird stuff.
Yeah, there's a reason Villarreal, I guess, sat deep last week, and that's because they know that Liverpool can tear them to shreds. If Villarreal don't do that thing, I think Liverpool have every potential of tearing them apart. But you don't know. Like, I mean, you think about the 2006 semi-final, I think Villarreal gave Arsenal a bit of a heart attack in that second leg, even though, okay, now in fairness, the first leg was a bit different to how the last week went, and there was a smaller gap between the teams than there is this time. But I don't know, there's something about Unai Emery as well. When who was it we were talking about earlier on, Tyrone, we were talking about Fergal Logan coming out and being like, we're in a sorry state. Unai Emery in Europe, you just have to be a little bit cautious about writing him off completely. But Liverpool are just too good. It's all to do with Liverpool. Liverpool are just too good.
Liverpool are very good at the moment, it's true. But then I don't know. Okay. Fergus says, I hope Katie retires, as I fear Serrano would knock her out the next time. You do wonder though, like from a psychological perspective, Serrano knows that's the absolute peak that I can reach. I was winning the fight at one stage, and then I got broken down at the end of it. Like, you know, Pursoon obviously put it up to Katie in the first fight, but the second fight wasn't really a contest. Is that what happens here again? Is there a bit where it's like, I've broken you now, and so the next fight is routine? Not routine. It's never going to be routine, but easier. The second fight does not follow the same pattern as the first one.
Well, like, wasn't Maldonado saying last week though that Katie Taylor is going to reach a point in her career pretty soon where things will just start to slow down for her?
Yeah.
And he wasn't saying it's now 35-year-old Katie, but he was saying that a 35-year-old is closer to that point. So that's what the Serrano camp will be thinking, that if we leave this thing go maybe until next year, they'll have a better chance of beating her.
Eddie Hearn was talking about 3-minute rounds, says Niamh. If that was the case the other night, she would have been knocked out. Would it be foolish to agree to that? I mean, you don't have to agree to it. It's like, no, not doing that.
Yeah.
We're the champ. You want to come with the king? Great, but these are the rules. Leeds have 3 wins, 2 draws and 1 loss to Man City in their last 6 games, says Confidence Wellness. In a battle for sure, but have a look at the form, lads. CS says the problem for Leeds is in form. It's not in their hands anymore. She had fancied them to beat Brighton and Brentford in that current form, but they could be all but gone before then. I think if they were to get 6 points against Brighton and Brentford, they're probably going to be safe. But we don't know what's going to happen. That's why it's been a bit crazy. Shane Hannon is with us. Shane, good morning to you.
Morning, lads. How are things?
Yeah, very good, very good. You were Peaky Blindersing it up at Punchestown, I saw.
Yeah, I was. I went with no socks as well, which proved controversial on Instagram. So that's never going to happen again. But I had a great time in Punchestown. It was very, very enjoyable.
And you got your ankles tanned?
Got my ankles tanned. It was it was mad. It was my first time in Punchestown. I met Owen Sheahan at the entrance, and he reminded me that he had been at Punchestown last at Oxygen 2011, and I was at the same festival. So we were both rekindling and getting very nostalgic, it has to be said.
Oxygen 2011 was like kind of a teddy bear's picnic compared to the scenes at Punchestown on Friday last week, to be quite honest with you. It was the most...
You haven't recovered?
No, I have recovered.
You don't sound like it.
No, I've just got a bit of a cold, which has nothing to do with it. I mean, like some of the scenes at Punchestown on Friday.
Well,
oh my God.
Well,
I'm not, like, there's absolutely zero chance because we will get a... No, I can't even say. Like, I mean, we will be in trouble. We will be in a lot of trouble if I recounted some of the stuff.
The
that
Kentucky Derby is decadent and depraved.
Yes,
that's the
decadent and depraved. Apparently, was it a record crowd or close to it?
Yeah, it was record. Yeah,
on Friday.
You guys swelling it, all right?
Yeah. I wore socks though, so
you win. Is that what you're saying?
I win. Yeah.
Right, well, Team OTB are taking on Try-a-Thigh this June. It's all in partnership with Whoop, the personalised digital fitness and health coach that helps you unlock your inner potential. That's it there. Shane, you are going to win this, right? You're going to win not just the OTB competition, but you're aiming to win the whole of Try-a-Thigh. Is that fair?
Very fair, Ger. And I know a lot of confidence the last time we partook in a sporting activity as a team. But I think you need a bit of confidence. I'm 28 years of age, Ger. I'm probably in the prime of my life, I think. It's never going to be better than this, physically, mentally, emotionally. So I just need to appreciate that. And why wouldn't I be the favourite? Like, it sounds strange to say when literally Irish legend Brian O'Driscoll is one of the other people partaking, but am I right in saying Brian is only doing one leg?
Doing the cycle, yeah.
He's also not 28.
So you're going to beat him in the cycle. Is that what I'm hearing here, Shane? At least.
I'm actually more afraid of yourself, Ger, in the cycle, because you're a man who, you're one of these middle-aged men in Lycra who constantly out and about, pumping the kilometres in. Like, that makes me afraid, and I feel like my bike maybe isn't up to the standard. It's only an old hybrid. I know you probably have a racer bike with a motor on it.
A motor's a good idea. I should get a motor. I should go full moto.
Man.
Yeah. Get one of those little things that fit. You need a US postal bike though to fit according to the documentary. No, I'm behind, Shane. It's fair to say COVID knocked me off my perch.
Well, this is the thing. So training is important, and I remember when I did the Dublin Marathon in 2015. So we're talking 7 years ago now. I was young. I was immature.
Did you win that?
I did. Funny enough, I didn't win the marathon. I was very disappointed. I think maybe an Ethiopian guy came ahead of me.
Okay.
Which was very disappointing. But I tried. But it's one of those. I didn't train for the Dublin Marathon in 2015. I was very, very stupid, not recommended. I was drinking on the Wednesday, and the race I think was on the Saturday or Sunday. It was not the approach to take. I was almost kind of testing myself to see, can I do a marathon with no training whatsoever? But now I'm 7 years older, wiser, more mature. I know that's not the attitude to take, and I'm not underestimating this triathlon. I think like the fact that it's home advantage for you, Ger, as well, and in a thigh, I'm sure you know the course like the back of your hand. You're aware of all the twists and turns, especially on the water. So that has to be an advantage, I think.
I'm going to float down the river. That's my plan, like one of those little bobs that you see the fishermen use. So what is your training like at the moment? Legitimately, what are you actually doing?
So I'm like at the minute I'm kind of doing strength training in the gym and runs. Now I haven't been on the bike, and like I've been going to the pool. I am a member of my local pool here in Monaghan Town, and yet every time I go to the pool recently, I spend 20 minutes in the steam room, 15 minutes in the sauna, and 10 minutes in the jacuzzi, and then I leave and have not entered the swimming pool itself. So I keep going and forgetting to actually get in the pool and do lengths. So that's a worry. I'm not like, I wouldn't be the world's strongest swimmer, and I'm kind of mildly terrified of that aspect. That leg certainly fills me with fear. Like 250 meters doesn't sound like a lot on paper, but it's actually when you like iron it down, it's a lot of swimming. Like us three lads, we all did the swimming lessons in Trinity College for off the ball back in the day pre-COVID. It seems like a lifetime ago now, but that like 250 meters. If our coach at that point had said, "Right, lads, hop in the pool and do 250,"
no problems.
We'd have been filled with fear. I think.
No problems. We were practicing swim a mile. 250. We were going to do 5 times the 250 meters. This is easy. You're talking yourself into it. This is ridiculous. If Owen was telling me he was worried about 250, in fairness, we all saw him in the pool. That would have been, that would have been fine.
50 would have been a struggle.
Yeah, but it's like, come on.
A river is different, though, right? Like the surely the water.
I think it's down current. I think we're going to be grand. You don't be worried about it here. The one thing I would say is that we all get access to each other's stats. It's been notable to me that the person who gets the most rest, who sleeps the best out of all of us on the team is Nathan, who always routinely hits like 80-85% of his target.
Wow. What's the secret, I wonder?
And he has kids as well, like Owen and myself and a few of the younger lads. Tommy probably don't have any excuse. We don't have that excuse of kids. So
you're out carousing. That's the problem.
But like, how is Nathan the one that gets all the sleep?
I don't know, Shane. It's a very good question. It's one of the benefits of being part of our Whoop community. Right. Well, so I'm going to beat you in the swim, and you're going to beat Dricko in the cycle. That's what I'm hearing from this morning.
I think you're going to beat everyone in the cycle, Ger, and
I don't think so.
I think I'll be behind after the run is last, right? So I'll be behind after the first 2 elements, but I think my run will be so strong that I might catch up no matter what the lead is. So I'm confident about the run part.
Winner, chicken dinner. That's what I'm hearing from Shane Hannon this morning. Good stuff, Shane. Thanks a million.
Cheers, lads. Good stuff.
Team OTB taking part in Try-a-Thigh this June. It's all in partnership with Whoop, the personalised digital fitness and health coach that helps you unlock your inner potential. You can compare and contrast each other, and that's the best part about this is I think that Shane will win irrespective of how well his training goes or what his equipment is like. Now, Cathal Mullaney is with us. Cathal, good morning to you. How are you?
Morning, lads. Not too bad. How are you?
We haven't talked about the penalty shootout yet. That would normally be in the green. Clare versus Limerick. Clare's so close to delivering on all the promise of recent years, but they just got caught by Limerick.
Yeah, it was some game. Absolutely unbelievable match. Limerick actually got a free at the end to level things up, and then Clare had to kick a free in extra time to level things up again, and then the penalties, Limerick's penalties were unbelievable, brilliant. But yeah, for Clare, I suppose it's disappointed in the fact that they're on the opposite side of the draw to Kerry and Cork. All of the teams on the other side would have looked at this year as a real chance to get to the provincial final, but it just didn't work out for Clare. But I have to give Limerick huge credit. I mean, Billy Lee spoke afterwards, and he spoke about, I think in 2018 they had a bit of a hammering at the hands of Clare, and then they got a hammering by Mayo in the qualifiers, and he said basically after that they knew that they needed to get up to a certain physical level to compete with those teams, and they have done so, and it was just a brilliant result for them, and you would probably back them to beat Tipperary now in the next match as well, and get through to the Munster final, which is a huge rise for them. But the penalty shootout was brilliant. Such a novel way to finish a match. I'm not sure, I know some of the guys in the Sunday game said it wasn't the best way to finish a championship match.
Blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah.
I don't know.
I don't know. Come on. What are you going to do? Like, ruin the whole fixture list because we can't finish stuff on the day? What are you going to do? Penalty shootout's great.
I thought it was great. Like, I saw the picture from behind the penalty takers before I actually watched the highlights, and I was like, wow, there was a big crowd behind that goal, but there wasn't. They all just moved behind the goal as soon as the penalties actually started to try and put off the Limerick players. Like, I mean, the thing is, like, so much happened in the game. Like the Limerick goal from the fullback, like, was just one of the most
unbelievable
scores of the championship, probably.
Absolutely unbelievable, and he carried a lot of great ball out from the back. Actually, Brian Fanning, he played really, really well. 2 really good sides. Clare are going to be sticky opposition in the qualifiers as well, I would think. I was actually at their game when they played Mayo down there in the league last year, and they only lost by 4 points to Mayo. So I think any team that has to go to Cusack Park is going to find it very, very tricky. But for Limerick, brilliant for them. I mean, they've done a lot of work, and I think they have a lot of work going on in their academy as well, that they're quite confident that in the coming years they can really pack a punch. So they look to be on the rise, definitely.
They're breaking hurls all over the place. We've Billy Lee
hearing all about that they're putting the same effort into the football as they are into hurling. So equal opportunity destroyers coming your way. What else going on, Carl?
Well, let's start with last night's Premier League action. Ralph Ragnick's final home game as Manchester United's interim boss ended in a 3-0 win over Brentford in the Premier League last night. That result leaves United in 6th with 2 games left to play. Liverpool attempt to book their place in a 3rd Champions League final in 5 years tonight. They take a 2-0 lead to Spain for the second leg of their semi-final tie with Villarreal. Kick-off for that game is at 8. Big game in the Championship tonight as well. It's Bournemouth against Nottingham Forest, 2nd against 3rd. Fulham clinched the title last night. They beat Luton by 7-0. UEFA's decision to ban Russian teams from participating in European competition is set to benefit St Patrick's Athletic. The Inchicore club now set to enter the Europa Conference League at the 2nd round stage as opposed to the 1st round. Pats, of course, won last season's FAI Cup and finished 2nd in the SSE Electricity League Premier Division. UEFA has also thrown Russia out of this summer's Women's European Championships in England. Ronnie OSullivans says he was never bothered about records after winning his 7th World Snooker Championship title last night, overcoming the challenge of Judd Trump by 18 frames to 13 at the Crucible. O'Sullivan's triumph means he's now level with Stephen Hendry's record of 7 world titles. Some positive injury news for Leinster ahead of the weekend's Heineken Champions Cup action. Stuart Lancaster says that James Ryan could feature against Leicester in their quarter-final tie at Welford Road. Ryan back in training after suffering a concussion on international duty with Ireland back in March. Ryan Baird and Ronan Kelleher also in contention to play in that quarter-final tie. In yesterday's Gaelic Games action, a late point from Joe Fitzpatrick earned Kilkenny a place in the Leinster under-20 hurling final. They beat Galway in a cracker by 128 to 127 after extra time in Tullamore. Wexford also through. They beat Dublin by a point, 115 to 114. And finally, there's racing at Ballinrobe in County Mayo today. The first is off there at 10 to 5.
All right, we're going to be joined by Anthony Moyles in just 1 second. Here's Brian Kerr talking some Everton first.
After that performance today, my mind has totally changed. What do you think they've done?
Well, it certainly adjusted the style of play. I mean, you look in the last 4 games, they beat Manchester United 1-0, they draw with Leicester 1-1, they beaten 2-0 at Liverpool, they beat Chelsea today. So they got 7 points in those 4 games. I think if you'd have asked any Everton supporter in advance of the 4 games, would they take 7 points? They said, yes, please. I think, they've obviously played a much tighter system. They changed today again and went to a 5 at the back with Alex Iwobi right back. And Mikalenko left wing back with Seamus going into a third centre half, and it was very effective. Allowed the centre halves to go in after Werner and Mount playing as whatever the 2 number 10s they're called now, and they defended very well and they waited on the chance. Didn't get too many chances in the first half, but they worked hard to get the chance in the second half, and Richarlison played very well. Mostly as the defensive centre forward, I'd say, chasing round Everton's 3 centre backs to stop the build-up play. But they got the reward, they got the goal, and then they dug in. But it did take some great saves from Pickford to keep Chelsea out. But a massive victory for them, and it gives them a good chance. But unfortunately, from their point of view, Burnley are on a bit of a run as well. They've won 3 games in a row, and Leeds are there. Leeds are not in a great situation. But they've given themselves a real chance, and there'll obviously be confidence in the side now, having won that game today. Can they do something in a couple of the away matches is the question. Their away form has been very poor. They've still to go to Watford. I think they've got Watford and they've got Brentford and they've got Arsenal, they've got Villa. So there's still points there for them to get, but they're going to need more points. That puts them on 32. I think they'll need 38 points to stay up.
At 8:53, we're turning our attention to Gaelic football. Anthony Moyles is with us in studio. You called Derry Tyrone correctly?
Well, yeah, I suppose I won't. I'm sure I'm going to make plenty more mistakes. So, yeah, I just think it felt that way. I know you guys were talking about it obviously a lot last week. And we've been obviously following Derry through the league. Look, I was massively impressed with them, Ger. Massively impressed with them. Now, we can get on to Tyrone in a few minutes because definitely Tyrone didn't help themselves. But obviously they've loads of talent throughout the squad, but massive amount of pace and also an ability to back themselves. So, there's a willingness to back themselves first of all. So, I think there has been an awful I suppose, trait through football over the last number of years, that when you come into the tackle, you retain possession. So you spin back out of the tackle and you pass the ball backwards or sideways or whatever it is. Whereas they were 100% drilled. You could see it. They were willing to back themselves, but also they had the skills and the speed to execute that. Actually, when they came to a man, they took him on. So, like, I think teams, and I know we've spoken about this before, about this whole risk reward, and you know, you can see it in how Dublin are trying to change in certain things. The whole idea now of retain possession. The better teams are realising actually, like, that's only going to get you so far. Yeah. So we need to have a risk reward situation here, and the risk reward when I come up against even you or even two players is I'm going to have to try to take you on. And if you're really busying yourself during training sessions to get adept at that, to get confident at it, to know how to do it, you know, ball in the outside hand when you're going past a man on your right side, all those little small things, but things actually, to be honest with you, that has been forgotten about. Like, if you go to training sessions up and down the country, from kids to senior men, you won't see fellas taking each other on anymore. It's just not the thing that was done. You know, years ago it was done, because you invariably you came across those collisions. You know, those kind of interactions were much more prevalent because it was one-on-one an awful lot. So you had to take your man on. You know, you always heard it being roared in, take him on, you know. Whereas for the last number of years it wasn't, it was retained. So their ability to do that, obviously to back themselves, like, they just showed Tyrone as, like, Tyrone looked like a slow team, a labouring team.
Let's talk about Tyrone. How did that happen? How did they go from being All-Ireland champions, who were self-confident against anybody in any situation last year, with a really well-drilled game plan and like a beautiful rhythmic style where they could go long if they needed to? They were the ones who would have, like, Conor McKenna bursting on a straight line, knowing exactly what everybody knew what their role was, to that team that looked like they were uncertain of everything. Every aspect of their game plan looked uncertain.
And you've hit the nail on the head there. That was the uncertainty. You could see it literally from minute one, that they were kind of looking around going, okay, who's going to take the mantle on here? And you've seen that throughout the league, like, bar a couple of fellas like Meyler and Hart in a few games. I think, let's start from the top. I thought the selection was a bit strange. Like, I mean, Canavan has been one of their best forwards in the league. I felt he's been a guy who's tied an awful lot of things in. For him not to start, I was kind of going, okay, that's an interesting one. You know, the McKenna thing, getting back, all of that, did that kind of throw the eye off the ball? I find it very, very difficult to put my finger on exactly what's going on. There's obviously something going on, and we've said this inside the camp. Like, there's 6 or 7 people to hit the high road. It's not like you're hitting the high road from a team that's about number 12 in the country. You're hitting the high road from the All-Ireland champions. You have probably a decent enough fair crack at the whip of getting another medal in your back pocket, and you're deciding, actually, I've done with this. So there's something going on there. There's a paradigm involved there between someone that something's not working. There's a miscommunication, or there's something, people aren't believing what they're being told, right? So that on its own, 7 out of a potential panel of 30. That's a big number. Well, it's not 2.
Changes the quality of your training significantly.
Well, so the actual fundamentals of it is it does all that, but what does it do for the atmosphere around the whole place? Like, they're pals of fellas. They're fellas that they've gone into battle before with. Like, I mean, this idea of number 1 is the same as number 30. Well, is it? You know, so you've all of that going on. Then you come down to actually just their execution and how they're playing, and as I said, they look slow. Now, of course, they're not slow, right? They're still the same team. They're still able to do all of those things that we know they can do. But when you're not really believing it, when you're not really believing your own role in it, when you're not really sure of your direction of where you're going, they seemed completely confused. They showed an unbelievable lack of heart. There's a clip. I don't like to call him players out, but O'Neill comes on at half time. He's on the pitch, I'd say only 5 or 6 minutes. A kick out comes. He contests the kick out. He loses the kick out. I think he fouls the man. I can't remember who is the half back for Derry. He kicks only a short little kick pass, about 10-15 metres, and he basically jogs back. Now, he's only on the pitch. And I remember rewinding it 2 or 3 times, and I just said, like, the lack of desire to get back, the lack of desire. I've never seen a team in Ulster come out with the ball as easy as the Derry backs were coming out with the ball. Like, they were just sauntering out. Like, they were literally able to pick their man out, come out there, get one tackle on them, and then there was no hunger, there was no intensity at all in the tackle. The forwards, like McShane spent half the game on the ground. I don't know, like, I mean, he was like he was skating. Like, I mean, he just kept falling on the ground. He couldn't keep his footing. His tackle level, like, if you see it, he'd throw in one tackle, and it was one of those, I'm tackling just because I have to tackle you, but it was no real intensity to go after the man, and then he'd stand up kind of, you know, saying, well, that didn't work out for me. So I think they're in absolutely dire straits, to be honest with you. And Derry could have beaten them by more.
Well, can you recover from that? Can Tyrone recover? Like,
what are they, 5 weeks?
A big long break. Don't know who they're playing yet. There are some teams floating around in the qualifiers who might be no good, like, who might not be at their level.
They need one of those. Like, I mean, people will argue now, okay, they'll go back to the club, but they might play a round or two. That's probably what I would do. I'd be saying, right, we're doing a round of championships or something here in the club. Get them away for a minute, because obviously, and then the management team are going to have to have a think about, right, how do we re-engineer the atmosphere here, and where is our motivation to get them? So do we hunker down and we go, you're All-Ireland champions, lads, never mind what's going on here, we're not going to let this, have you any pride at all, that type of thing, you know, our backs are to the wall.
They did that twice last year, once after the game in Killarney and once around COVID. Like,
yeah,
so, you know,
you're going back to the well again.
Yeah, and in fairness, like, it's reanimating a corpse, but that's what zombies do, you know.
Exactly.
And so
yeah,
I'm not quite writing them off yet, but there's a lot of evidence. If you want to write them off, I wouldn't stop you making the case.
Like, I think if they got one of the top teams in that qualifier draw, a team that we wouldn't have expected, say, to be in there, shall we say, like, it's funny, it'll be the making or they're done, you know.
Yeah.
And if they're done, I think they could peter out, you know.
They could get hammered by a Mayo or somebody.
Yeah.
Like another 10, 12 points.
Yeah, and I don't even know getting someone weak and you get over them by 7 or 8 or 9 or 10. That doesn't do a whole pile for you coming into the next one. It really doesn't. There's still the big question mark. They need a big win, and I just can't see it at the moment.
Like, what was interesting to me on Sunday was this, like, Derry really kind of brought a physicality to the game. So they did to Tyrone what Tyrone had done to so many teams in the past, to the point where Tyrone got completely wound up. Obviously, the kick out, the throwing of the ball. Like, how does that happen? How do, like, I think that's one of the reasons why Tyrone have been so good in Ulster down through the years, is that they have been the aggressor in a very aggressive place. And it seems that they just completely, they got out aggressed, if that's even a phrase, by Derry. I don't know what happened. It was just like so un-Tyrone for them to be on the receiving end of that, rather than the ones giving it.
I think two things happened there. One that, so it's probably the cause and effect. The cause, I think, is certainly a situation where you don't understand your North Star. You're kind of what Ger was saying. You don't really understand the roles, and there is this sense of, we're going in here, like, players aren't stupid, so management teams can kind of talk about, you know, this is what we're doing, and we're all very confident now in doing this, aren't we, lads? And really, players will be questioning it, right? They will be questioning it, and you know, we've spoken before about, say, conceding kickouts to teams or setting up a certain way. Players understand. Like, if it's a really, really solid strategy that you're, say, deciding you're doing this because you know you're going to have a great chance of winning the game, or is it just a strategy of you're keeping the score down? Players will feed off that. And when players go into a game, no matter what you're saying, players will know. And straight away, as soon as the whistle is blown, you will see it in their body language. Tyrone looked to me like a team with the body language of, we don't really know where we're going here. We don't really know what we're at. There's players being shifted all over the place. Are we really confident in the positions we're in? Like, look at McGeary, look at certain players, look at McShane. They're playing with zero confidence, these lads. Zero confidence compared to McShane. McShane looks about 5'10", 5'11" now. He doesn't look 6'3". Like, I look at him and I kind of go, geez, you'd blow him away. Whereas last year, you see him coming on, you're thinking, this lad's in beast mode. He's coming on here to knock everyone out of the park. He doesn't do that anymore. He doesn't knock any lads over. That's not a physicality thing. That's just a mentality thing. So what happens then is, because you know that on, you also remember, you know, the grey matter is gone, but you wear that. You have an All-Ireland in your back pocket. So then the frustration comes in. And of course, what happens is a fella's in your face, and you're getting more and more annoyed at yourself because you know you can do it, but you're just not doing it, and you just lash out. And it's a simple, small thing.
It's funny, we had Grota Hegarty on the show like 2 weeks ago, or just before the first match in the championship, and he talked about the league campaign last year and the league campaign this year, where you get a little bit narky because you're not quite at the level you should be at, and that was the hallmark of that. It was like you would expect them to know not to do the stupid things they did, because they weren't sent off for violent conduct. It was stupidity,
passion stuff.
Like, so look, I don't know, maybe there's a long enough break that they can get a lot of work done.
Yeah, for me the question is like where is the ceiling? So like, I mean, the Limerick thing is interesting because they have such a high ceiling. Once they refound that spark, they could blow teams away. Chances are Dublin maybe went through this at various times during the 6 in a row, but because Leinster was so weak, it never actually showed on the scoreline. Maybe today against Carlow, when Connolly has the altercation with the linesman, maybe that's actually a moment like Tyrone had at the weekend, except for the fact that Dublin were just so much better that there was never going to be a result that was in danger. So maybe this is something that they can turn around. Maybe this is the moment that can spark a turnaround in their season, because it has happened before. It has happened with maybe defending All-Ireland champions or teams at the very top of the pile.
Of course, there's the possibility. They still have enough quality in the squad, and certainly on that starting 15, or a couple of lads have come in. I'm surprised, I'm just surprised. I thought, like the Donnellys, Richie Donnelly was making quite an impact in the league. There was just an odd feel to the whole team. There was an odd feel to the players that came in.
Yeah.
There was guys I was kind of going, where's he? Like, why isn't he on?
Yeah.
And I know championship. There's often a couple of lads who are pulled out of the hat in championship time, but it just doesn't look like a happy camp to me.
Given that, right? Is there any possibility we actually overrate what Derry have done, and that Monaghan are sitting there licking their chops, going, "Happy days, you guys go off and celebrate like you've just won Sam. We know what this is about. We're the old dog for the hard road."
They certainly will be, because they love this. They're sitting away. No one's mentioning them. Everyone was expecting them to do a job on down, and they did the job on down, and they did it very, very efficiently and effectively. And all the talk will be about, of course, Derry. But I think Gallagher is smart enough to realise. The players, I think, were pretty subdued after it. The Derry players. I didn't see them whooping and hollering and jumping around and going bananas. Like, they'd be okay. They'd beaten the All-Ireland champions. That's still a feather in the cap.
Yeah.
He was jumping around a bit, but I think he was jumping around. That was a bit more probably, manager
players
to
up
manager.
for it.
Yeah, and also, he was sticking it to Dooher and Logan probably.
Yeah.
He's been on the receiving end of those beatings before. So he himself, but I think he's smart enough, and I think his backroom team be smart enough to be able to say, well, actually, listen, let's analyse this, and you know what, maybe they weren't all that they were, before, and maybe we got them on a bad day, etc., etc. And there's a different animal coming to town, because Monaghan looked very well equipped and very strong, very compact, very capable of putting up a big score. But I still think Derry are a good outfit.
Yeah.
Now, will they be given the type of situation? Because you'd imagine Monaghan will say they love to run, lots of power coming from the halfbacks. So what we're going to do is we're going to meet them.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah.
We're just going to meet them.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's well set up to be a massive game where the prize is going to be you get to play Donegal potentially.
The hits keep coming.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the Dubs, right? The Dubs had a really strong bench, and they had Con back, and
who would have known that, huh?
They all look lean, and Fenton seems to be taking it personally that people were saying, sure, look, because he was. We were talking about Brian Fenton as the greatest footballer of all time for a while there, and that conversation stopped. And he's like, "Why did that stop? Hang on a second. I'm still like, I'm not finished here.
Yeah.
There's still plenty of time for him to add to his legacy. So, how dangerous are Dublin?
I mean, so I'm not. Wexford were bad. They were poor. They were very poor, right? We talk about body language and we talk about setting up, and I'm a little bit disappointed in them. And people will say whatever, but I thought last week they would have had a right cut, because I thought the soundings coming from the camp where it's a young team and we're just going to have a rip at them. And I was saying, Jesus, you know what? Fair play. Just have the rip.
Yeah.
But they didn't, right? They from the throw up you could see, well, actually this is not what this game plan is going to be. It's going to be about containing them, trying to catch them on the break, and they just said, period. Now The flip side of the coin, Dublin were very, very efficient and very effective. But we've said this before, unless you're putting that back six under pressure against Dublin, and the new goalkeeper, third choice, make him kick the ball out. I don't care, give a damn, my lads, if you kick the thing 40 yards wide, let's face his kick out and let's squeeze him a little bit and let's put a bit of pressure on him. I think he had 7 kickouts for the whole game. Right, so you're not going to win. You're not going to win that, and literally you're going to give them the ball. And of course, they weren't in the mood to say, "Well, we'll just pass the ball around here." They went for the jugular straight away. So, were they very impressive? Yes, they were. Were they allowed to be very impressive? I think they were. But yes, O'Callaghan gives them that focal point. When you look at the bench and look at the ability of who they were able to bring on, I still don't think that 6 is an All-Ireland winning 6. The 6 that started. I think that there will probably be changes, obviously, with McCarthy and the likes. I'm surprised by the Davy Byrne omission. I think Davy was probably hung out to dry a little bit during the league with no real support around him. So, but again, it just shows the strength and depth. Okay, but I'm not so sure. It's like I look towards the Meath game, and certainly they will be matched in midfield with athleticism. Menton and Jones will be able to motor and will be able to go at Fenton and Lahif, right? They will be able to put more pressure on them going backwards, and the Meath forward line, you would imagine, will be a bit more, will have more in them. So it's going to be a situation not necessarily of the question marks over the front 6, it's going to be the question marks over that back 6 for Dublin.
Okay, Dublin are 8-point favourites for that game against Meath. I think that's too much.
Yeah, you see, Meath haven't shown a whole pile, obviously, in different kind of league campaign. The game against Wicklow was okay. Andy even said afterwards, he wasn't that happy because they just weren't really, he felt, at the pitch of it. They tried a new few fellas, came in, made their debuts, did well. They ended up winning the game fairly well on the scoreline, but actually Wicklow were playing really good stuff. And Wicklow were doing a massive amount of conditioning, and the players was excellent. They were doing a massive amount of work and have been doing a massive amount of work. And they were still in that game with 50 minutes gone. They were matching Meath nearly score for score, except Meath were getting a few goals. So Meath are probably scratching their head, but look, it's Meath Dublin. The Meath fellas there'll be absolutely zero. They won't fall for motivation coming into this one. And if any time, I think this is the best time for me to get them, because if you got them after a Kildare or a Westmeath win, they will be ones. I don't think Dublin have learned a whole pile about themselves. Like, let's be honest, Desi Farrell's sitting there and he's going, right, I still don't know anything about my 6, and we shipped a lot of heavy scores in the league. I still don't know how Meath can get at us in that back line. I know I have Con back, great, tick the box, but sure, he was going to come back anyway, and he's probably going to do what he was going to do. And when you hand them the ball out around the middle and say, listen, do what you want there with the ball, and there's no real pressure on them, they're going to absolutely fillet you, which is what they did. So it's going to be a different kettle of fish against you. I think 8 is generous. I hope it's generous, and I think it's generous because I think there's still enough question marks over certain individuals in that defence and the way they are and the way they've been playing that Meath can get after them.
We need to see a defensive structure from the Dubs, really, and hopefully Meath will make them reveal what that is to us, because there wasn't one in the league.
Correct. Yeah, well, I think, John Small's injury didn't help an awful lot, because John would have played that +1 role where he kind of has always covered that central, that D area. He's always been the man who has intercepted those balls, or who's just been there as a presence. So when you look up to kick in, you're like, oh, he's there, and he's just marshalling that defence. He's only allowed to do that when there's other individuals around him. So, yeah, I have, and maybe they have this defensive that they're yet to reveal, and maybe they're just being kind of playing kind of silly buggers throughout the whole league and kind of leaving, as I said, fellas one-on-one. But when they're playing that type of game that they're playing, which is more of a kicking game and breaking up the pitch, it is leaving a bit more at the back, a little bit more fellas exposed. So can they handle it? That question will only be answered, I suppose, as they get better quality forwards against them.
Okay, it's going to be interesting to see as we evolve. One last point. I was accused of yerring ahead of the Louth game, but like Louth have ghosts for Kildare that few other teams actually have. Everybody else, you're like, okay, we understand what the rules are here, but Kildare were efficient, ruthless, energetic, aggressive, everything you want. It was like they have an identity again.
Yeah, we spoke about this on Friday, and Louth's star had absolutely risen. But at the same time, they came up against a county in Leinster whose star has also risen, regardless of the fact that we're only within a kick of the ball of staying in Division 1. Right, so people will look at the campaign and say, "Oh, well, they went down to Division 2," but really, when you focus in on it, you're saying, that doesn't tell the true story.
We've gone down before where we lost every game and hadn't a chance of winning any of those games. Whereas 100%. In this situation, it was like, okay, I understand exactly why that happened.
But also, I've seen. Obviously, plenty of people in Kildare, and even just chatting to people around on the border of the stuff. There's a different vibe in Kildare. There's a different atmosphere in Kildare. I've seen the work that Glenn and Johnny and the lads are doing, even where they're kind of clapping kind of kids on, and kids are kind of clapping them into Newbridge. There's an inclusiveness around the game again, which I think hasn't been there for the last number of years. And the inclusiveness comes from the fact that these fellas are legends, obviously, in the Kildare jersey, but that just doesn't necessarily make it that it will work, right? It can often go the other way. The fact is that they've done it at underage. Like Johnny Doyle has been involved there, Anthony Rainbow, they've all been involved at underage. They've all seen how they've all been involved at club level, so they know the intricacies of it. They know the workings of the county board. They know what they need to probably do to get what they want and not get what they want, if you get me. So there's a load of stuff, and then they know how to probably, like, more than anyone, how passionate Kildare fans are, and all they need is a spark. And Kildare fans are like Meath fans. They really just want to see the team putting effort in.
Yeah.
Just give us something to hold on to. Try and win. Yeah. I mean, don't set up not to win. Just try and win. And they're seeing that with them. They're seeing that with them. And Kildare, same as I said, they won't get worried if you get bet by 4 or 5 if you actually go out there and put your body on the line and try to do it. And you can see that in them. So was I surprised? I was surprised probably by the measure of it, to be honest with you, but I wasn't surprised that they won. And they need to, the one thing that they need to probably just make sure it doesn't happen is where they go away from script a little bit, and some fellas who shouldn't be taking shots start taking, and then that brittleness. I slightly worried about, say, Meath and Kildare, in the sense of if they hit the mask of Dublin and expect it to fall handily, it won't fall.
No.
You're going to have to keep hitting this thing repeatedly and repeatedly and repeatedly. Just because it's cracked doesn't mean that it's just going to fall off straight away.
They let Louth back into the game in the third quarter, and there's just maybe it's natural. You're not going to win 75 minutes of championship football against a team who have good players and dominate the whole thing. But there was definitely a bit where it went from 11 points to 5 pretty quickly. You're like, if that was against the Dubs, that'd be 2-3 scored in this game over. So sure, look, we're still in it.
Look at this, Yera, 2 weeks in a row.
He's learning from the best now, to be honest, though. It is eventually you have seeped your Yera-ness into him.
No, anyway, it's absolutely infuriating to listen to this crap.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Bloody hell, it's an absolute disgrace. It's lying, basically. That's what it is. It's dishonesty.
Anthony, good stuff. Thanks a million.
No bother, lads.
The football pod of Paddy Andrews and James O'Donoghue is hitting the road this summer. We want you to be there. First stop is the Royal Theatre Castlebar on Thursday, June the 2nd, where Paddy, James and Tommy will dissect, analyse and celebrate Mayo football as well as Championship 2022 in the usual football pod style. Plus, you can expect a local legend or two to join the lads on stage. That's the football pod with Paddy and James in Castlebar on June the 2nd. Tickets are on sale now. Go to otbsports.com/events to get yours today, and stay tuned to OTB for more details on more shows to come. The latest episode is live right now. Here's what's on OTB Sports Radio for you today. At 1 o'clock it's Nigel Mansell on OTB Gold. 3 o'clock is Dadcast. 4 o'clock is Rugby Duos on Pitch Relations. Brian O'Driscoll and Ronan O'Gara, they had a good one. OTB Gold is Jason Sherlock at 6, and the show is live tonight from 7. After the break, we've got Alan Quinlan on the way.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
Marginal gains, XG, top speed, recovery, what's it all about? Want to improve but don't know where to start? With more data than ever now available, OTB Sports have teamed up with Whoop to cut through the noise and help you raise your game, no matter the sport. OTB Sports are delivering the metrics that matter. Meaningful metrics in partnership with Whoop, the personalised digital fitness and health coach that helps you unlock your inner potential. See whoop.com for more. Follow OTB Sports social channels for the best insights and stats this season.
This is Sport Ireland Campus, and here is where it all starts. From the little ones learning to the high-performance athletes leading. Here we go to play, to practice, to progress. Here is where communities in the nation come together to compete, to win, and to belong. Here we go to the next level, then on to the world stage. This is Sport Ireland Campus, and here we go. Visit sportirelandcampus.ie to be a part of it.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Let's turn our attention to rugby. Alan Quinlan is with us. Alan, good morning to you. How are you getting on?
Morning, lads. Yeah, good. Thanks, Ger.
It's the week of the Heineken Cup semi-finals and quarter-finals, and we're very interested in how the teams are actually going to line out for this one. We've been talking a good bit now over the last while about who's going to start for Munster, particularly at 9. Let's just jump in straight away. How easy or otherwise is the selection for a game like this weekend? What are they talking about and what are they trying to weigh up?
I was just thinking, obviously a lot of people are debating the merits of Craig Casey starting ahead of Conor Murray. I think he's improved his game a lot. We've spoken about that. It's pretty evident for everyone to see. It'd be a really brave call. I think Conor Murray has been pretty good for Munster. I think he was very important in both those Exeter games. And I was thinking about the merits of it. You go out and you go, right, we're going to attack Toulouse from the word go. We're going to try and play with high tempo. We're going to keep loads of pace in the game. Or you start Conor Murray and you have that extra defender, excellent at the breakdown. His kicking game is really good. And you hope that you get into a lead or that you're not chasing the game. Because I think that the thought process is, Craig Casey comes on and Munster pick up the pace of the game. Will they need to do that? I'm not sure. I'm really trying to think about what kind of game they need to play against Toulouse. We saw what Ulster did over in Toulouse, attacking them and trying to put width in the game and been really positive in the way they're trying to play. But Toulouse like that open game as well. I think it's how you manage the game. So there's for and against. I think Conor Murray's experience, as I said, in his defensive abilities and his reading of the game. And then you have Craig Casey who can, if they want to start, some people would argue that they need to really go for this in the word go. And I'm not sure. I'm divided on it. I don't know who they should start at scrum half, but obviously in the other positions they have lots of injuries. I think Thomas Ahern is someone who's really put his hands up in the last few weeks. He's brilliant, a brilliant young player. And it's great to see him putting in some performances. Alex Kendellen has been superb as well. Jack O'Donoghue. So I think they're in good form going into the game. But Toulouse have won the competition 5 times. They were very lucky to get into the knockout stages. They only beat Cardiff. The other games were a draw and a loss to Cardiff. And because of COVID, they were beaten by Toulouse or beaten by Wasps in England as well. So it's hard to know. If you're basing Toulouse's form and in the first 6 months of the season, you think they're a bit vulnerable, but they've shown the last, they beat La Rochelle at the weekend. When you start rattling off the names from the team, they're so powerful.
Well, that's the thing. They are a championship team, and not to be patronising here, but if Munster get beaten in a close game by this Toulouse team, I don't think anybody thinks that Munster are currently at the stage where they should be winning these games automatically. A lot will have to go their way to win it, but
yeah, they will. And I think power is one of the big concerns, I think, and that's where I think Conor Murray comes into it. His physicality, his size, whether they'll start Jenkins in the second row over Wycherley. There's a worry about the front row. They have Mo Vaca and Julian Marchand, Cyril Bay, incredible power right across the board, particularly up front. So look, it's going to take a mammoth effort for Munster, and they won't have Ty Byrne back, I don't think, which is he's an incredible loss. Kilcoyne is out for the rest of the season. Coombs, maybe Conwell will come back in. But I think they'll feel good about themselves in the last few weeks. If you look back on Friday night against Cardiff, it was a very open, entertaining game. But I think you contrast what we saw against Connacht at Christmas, and there's two stats that jump out from them for me is 17 offloads. They had one offload against Connacht in Galway. I know the conditions are different and the weather is much better, but I just think they're playing with a lot more confidence, and they look like they're enjoying themselves, and they want to attack. It's not perfect. 32 defenders beaten on Friday night. And, people will argue Cardiff are a totally different team than Toulouse, but still there's a lot of Welsh internationals there. And I said this all along, when Munster play with some ambition, energy, a bit of bite in them, people, the fans will accept that. I think they're realistic and know that, an incredible amount of stuff would have to go right, and you need a fair bit of luck to be winning a trophy with this group at the moment. But people are optimistic with some of the young players and what they've done the last few weeks.
That conversation about power is obviously the one that has been had for the last few years, the last consecutive few years, and it's particularly one that comes up around Leinster in terms of their defeats over the past couple of seasons in Europe. Obviously they're up against Leicester this weekend themselves. Do you expect this team to continue and at the end of the season the same old problems or the same old debate to be had around Irish rugby?
No, but I don't. I think, look, it keeps coming up about La Rochelle and the Saracens the year before. Exceptional teams on exceptional strengths that not every team has, and you can't just invent that, or they've signed Jason Jenkins for next year for a reason, to bring that kind of size and physicality if they need him. I think Leinster have grown and they would have learned a lot from that. La Rochelle last year, that bit of power, but it wasn't just that bit of power. It was some of the quality of Leinster looked quite comfortable in that game in the first half. I think if they had their time back, they played a little bit differently, try and play more territory, move the ball to the wider channels a little bit more in that game. But they just got a home and away. Home advantage is massive, and La Rochelle having a home advantage and a very good side. They showed last year by getting to right to the top in both competitions that they were a powerful side. So will Leinster have the same issues this weekend? Well, I don't think so. I think the area that probably concerns a little bit is the second row and just that sheer physicality. And sometimes you get freakish teams. Toulouse are one of them. The players they have, the Arnold brothers, Maufu in the second row, he's 130 kilos. Their back row is really big. Cyril Bay, all these players, they're just so powerful. And, it's difficult at times the old mentality is try and move the big pack around, and that just doesn't work to the same level. I think that the best way to play against a side like that is really protect the ball, hold on to it, and try and build it into multi-phase. But I think Leinster are a different side, and with Kelleher, Porter, Furlong, they bring an exceptional quality in their front row. We know a little bit more as the competition goes on. Can somebody overpower Leinster? They'll fancy their chances. I think they can, because they're not the biggest side in the world, but the way they play is so effective and relentless, and they're so fit, and they're very physical themselves. So I don't think it's going to be a concern in the rest of this competition from to Leicester, and Steve Borthwick will certainly try and make it real dogged for Leinster on Saturday. But I think they just have too much quality now, and they will have learned from their experiences.
Great to see Chris Ashton getting his moment in the sun at the weekend too. Of course, we all love to see an old swan dive.
Yeah, well, look, he's when I played against him, for a number of years, he's been around a long time. He probably irritated the opposition. Maybe still does a little bit.
He does, but in fairness,
he's actually a good fella off the field.
And I'd say if he's on your team,
he's a good fella off the field. Yeah. And the swan dive, has annoyed people over the years. But in fairness to him, he's a good bloke, and he's a hell of a player. And Yeah, he's a very dangerous player. He's still, that inside line that he tracks, that he runs all the time, and they'll be wary of him, I think. But, like I said, Leinster are in great shape. Look what they did in the URC. They sent a B team to South Africa. It's phenomenal against the Sharks and the Stormers to get 2 losing bonus points. They're now top of, they're obviously still top of URC and can't be caught. So they're guaranteed a home quarter, home semi, home final. Obviously, if they win those matches, some question marks, and you listen to the commentary in the last couple of weeks from South African commentators and, some stuff online that Leinster were kind of disrespecting the competition. It's phenomenal to think that they sent, a second string squad to South Africa against, international World Cup winners, and to get 2 losing bonus points. And actually for, I listened, Leo Cullen said it was job done.
Yeah.
It is job done because they can't be caught now. They're guaranteed.
Well, Lancaster's...
Hopefully in a few weeks they'll put out the second string against Munster, so Munster can get into the semi-final. But look, he's done a remarkable job again, and Stuart Lancaster stayed home. That's incredible, isn't it? With 16 players or 17 players to prepare for this weekend.
Yeah, he said Lancaster's in the papers today. Obviously, at the press conference yesterday was talking about training with the under-20s who were part of the Ireland squad and the frontliners. So they should be ready for this. Like it's a very evenly balanced European quarter-final where you've got currently the form team in England versus the form team in the other major league that we're playing in, and it's an away match where Leinster are actually favourites for this game, despite the fact it is a home match for Leicester and they haven't been beaten there for years. So this is exactly the type of titanic European match that we're supposed to get from the European Cup, and we've forgotten about how good a tournament the European Cup is, but it's matches like this that made us all fall in love with it. So fingers crossed Leicester come out the right side of it.
It sure is, yeah. And it's it's Leicester a very good side. I think Borthwick has done a brilliant job. They beat Bristol 56-26 I think at the weekend.
And they're
very,
home underdogs in a quarter final. Like, it's mad.
Yeah, it's incredible, I think, and they will they'll be really up for this. And I think but it's hard to judge Leicester and say, well, Connacht went over and got a losing bonus point. And Leicester are very powerful. Their set piece is very good, which is no surprise under Borthwick. Their scrum and line out is exceptional, and I think that's an area where they're trying to attack Leinster. But they're not the Leicester of old. That Welford Road isn't like it used to be many years ago when you had so many English internationals. It's still a very, very difficult game, and I think it's a tough challenge for Leinster, but I think they're good enough to come through it. Okay,
should be spectacular. I did want to just see if you had any update over the weekend on the coaching ticket and the backroom team. We haven't had white smoke just yet, but it looks like it's trending positively for Leamy and Prendergast. Is that your instinct?
That's all I'm hearing. I'm still trying to to get updates on that. And I don't know exactly where it's at, because I think Dennis Leamy was in South Africa with Leinster for a couple of weeks. Mike Prendergast is still under contract in Racing as well. So I don't know exactly where it's at, but I'm just hearing, and I heard Bernard Jackman saying I'm not trying to ring Prendy because I don't want to tell any lies. I'm a little bit like that. We've had some conversations, but it's still up in the air a little bit, and obviously I think it'd be brilliant if it happened, and it's moving and looking like that's the way it's going to end up maybe. I don't know exactly the nuts and bolts of it. I'm sure Leinster won't want to lose Dennis Leamy, but I would imagine that it would certainly interest him. And Munster in a place now where I think there's an opportunity to make them better, and that's kind of enticing for any coach. Yeah. So we'll wait and see on that one. The other thing, I know you have to go quick, but the Irish team beating Scotland on Saturday. Yeah. Incredible. I just thought, lots of mistakes, lots of errors. There's still issues there around set piece, skill set, all that kind of stuff. But for Enya Breen scoring that try and that conversion at the weekend, I think the women did fantastic. And I was just so happy for him, because they didn't play well, and Greg McWilliams admitted that afterwards, but it was lovely to see, I think. So, look, they avoided a wooden spoon and something to build on for the future.
Meanwhile, the Sevens team finished third at the same time and were really good. Like, if you could just maybe somehow find a system that worked where the best Sevens players weren't playing Sevens during the Six Nations, then maybe this could all work out. Maybe we're not as far away as the massive hammerings we've been taking would suggest.
Well, we were still a fair bit away as regards England and France, sure. You know, that's pretty obvious. But I think they look back in the Welsh game at the start and the issues they had there around game management and the set piece. So difficult things to fix, but I think they're still a very inexperienced group of players. So I think they learn a lot from this. And to lose seven players to the Sevens, another couple of injuries for that English game, that's hard on any side. So, you know, they have to upskill more. They have to learn about the game more. They have to understand the game more. The club game needs to improve more. And, you know, get more players playing. So I think, look, he creates some depth with this. They've got a summer tour and they've just got to get better at what they do right across the board. Scrum, line out, set piece, breakdown, body positions, everything like that. But I think they've shown lots of ambition and promise, and I was just really delighted from, as everybody else was. I think, you know, to get the try at the end and win in that kind of fashion, you can imagine the kind of confidence and the heartbreak of losing the home game, finishing, you know, with a wooden spoon, winning a game in that fashion. You can build something on that, and he didn't hide away from the fact that there's still there's lots of work to be done to try and close that gap, but I think it was just great to see them finishing on a positive on Saturday night. All
right, Alan, good stuff. We leave it there for now. Thanks a million. Cheers.
Cheers, lads. Thanks.
It's Alan Quinlan there. A reminder, OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. What do you think, as a Munster fan, is going to happen at the weekend?
It's I think the performance against Toulouse last year in the Champions Cup was actually a pretty good performance. Like, I remember it being, Easter weekend, wasn't it? It was like scorching day, beautiful conditions, and it was kind of at that point you're like, Toulouse could, you know, run up a big score here in these sort of conditions. And Munster did quite well. Obviously it wasn't perfect and it was disappointment afterwards, but it was an absolute contest for it. Have Munster got better or have they got worse since then is the question. And you'd have to say the mood music around the province hadn't been positive for a while, but all of a sudden they've hit some form. The problem is Toulouse have also hit form, and beating La Rochelle at the weekend was a bit of a fill-up for them. We pay probably more attention to La Rochelle than any other top 14 team, and we know that they're pretty good. So Toulouse are obviously going to be favoured for this. There's no question about it. But I think Munster are in a better place now to cause an upset than they would have been 4 or 5 weeks ago.
All right. Be sure to follow Off the Ball across all our social channels. Download the OTB Sports app for your latest and best sports content. We're back tomorrow from 7:30 with Nathan, Mark Lawrenson, Keith Wood and Ronan Mullen, freshly back from the Katie Taylor fight in New York over the weekend. Now we're going to leave you with some reaction from James Skehill on the hurling and Brian Kerr talking football.
We're going to go to Pearse Stadium. Galway 124, Kilkenny 317. 1 point win for Galway, and we have James Skehill with us. James, incredible finish. There were shades of Galway leaving it behind against Wexford after Kilkenny scored that late goal. So would a draw have been a fair result before that final free? The Connor Cooney, free on 75 minutes. Would it have been a fair result draw, or did Galway shade this, did you feel?
No, I think Galway dominated this, to be honest. There were stages already in the second half where I suppose Galway couldn't buy a point, but they had forged enough of a lead, enough of a pattern of kind of dominance, definitely in their backline, that suggested to me that Kilkenny weren't going to take any share in the spoils. But as you said, Joe, there was a stage where I know we faltered at the finish line against Wexford, and then with that goal, which must be said, it was a soft goal to concede. Now, in fairness to Éanna Murphy, he conceded a soft goal, but then he had the wherewithal to do a very, very short and fast puck out, which then ultimately led to the free. The free, for me, it wasn't a free. I'm showing my bias here and saying it was a free, but if I was on the other side of it, I'd be a bit disappointed. But Conor Cooney showed great battle to put the ball over the bar under great pressure, under a lot of pressure from the Kilkenny boys who struggled to reset themselves back from the free for a good 30-40 seconds. So fair play to Conor.
Yeah, and so if you were to park your Galway heart for a moment, since significant question marks over the free.
There was, yeah. You see, I suppose it was quite a frantic finish, Joe, in the sense that the goal was obviously conceded. There was an awful lot of disappointment from the crowd in the way the goal was conceded. But as I said, Eoin got up, did a very, very sharp hook out, which must be said in other times probably the referee would pull it back because he took it so fast. But I suppose just the way the game was going, it was a frantic finish, and it was a ball where Tom Monaghan was going up to catch it, and I think it was Paddy Deegan who kind of came through him and caught him with a knee in the back. Now, I thought myself it was a 50-50 contest. And as I said to you, if it was awarded against Galway, I'd be disappointed. But again, look, I'll take it. I'll put it that way to you. I'll take it. But
they're difficult ones because, you see, on the one hand, I would argue strongly, a referee can't take the game situation into account. And so if it's a free in the first minute, it's also a free in the 70-minute decisive or no. But when it is decisive, you do really want a referee to be sure as hell.
Absolutely. And I'm siding with you there, Joe. I would never understand how a referee can make a decision on the context of the game. It's either a free or not a free. And I was quite disappointed at the end of the Wexford game in the manner in which the referee at that time pulled Conor Cooney for supposedly time wasting. And I don't think he implied that rule at all. I'd say ever in his career did he imply that rule, certainly not in the inter-county game. But like that, there was a couple of rules broken in my opinion. I think the puck out, again, it was gone too fast. That wouldn't be allowed in let's say, minute 1 to minute 69. But again, I think the referee took the context of the game into play and let it go, because it was a game that Galway were dominating. They were nearly, in my perspective, I won't say certain of a victory, but they're well on the road to a victory. And then when they conceded that goal, it was like he was offering them another opportunity. And then as well, 3 minutes added injury time was announced. By the time the free was given, it was 38-47.
Yeah.
So, the time was up also. So I don't know, did the referee make an allowance for that?
Different stats now pop up after games, which is wonderful and gives you kind of, if for those who haven't seen it as closely as you, gives us indications as to the flow of it. So, for instance, 2 caught my eye. Kilkenny, when they had possession, they lost possession 60% of the time. Galway only lost it 46% of the time. And so what follows is what you would expect. Galway had a lot more shots on goal. Galway had 45 efforts on goal to Kilkenny's 31 efforts. Now, the thing is, Kilkenny were that bit more efficient, 65% shot conversion rate, whereas Galway's was 56%. So all that leads me to believe that Galway were on top for a lot of this game, had better build-up for a lot of this game, but a touch wasteful.
They were, I suppose, even the game in the first half, it was a frantic game. There was 22 scores in the first 22 minutes. Like, I don't think I've ever seen that before. And it was an awful lot of the scores were from play. So the game was certainly the opposite of a stop-start. It was free-flowing, it was frantic, there was bodies flying, it had intensity, quality, pace, everything you're looking for in a championship game. And as I said about the turnovers, Galway won the turnovers 39-30. And that's a key battle in inter-county hurling nowadays. And as I said about the shots, they got 12 more shots than Kilkenny, but some of Galway's shooting was a bit what I call hyper, Joe, whereas they'd do a great turnover, then they'd be in a bad position whereby maybe shift the ball across the field or pass it, and they shot them because there was a bit of hyper. The crowd was getting excited, and I think they need to be more efficient in that manner. I think when you come up against the bigger quality teams, I know Kilkenny are a quality team, but I'm talking about Limerick, and they're the standard bearer. So if we do come up against them in future, your efficiency rate has got to skyrocket, because you know they're going to have 50 shots, you know they're going to score 30 odd points. So every opportunity you get against a team of that quality, you're going to have to take.
So Kilkenny scored 2 goals, and I suppose their half-forward line created a dilemma which faces a lot of half-back lines, in that the Kilkenny half-forward line came very deep and then left a lot of space in the Kilkenny full-forward line, and this led to 2 goals. And at that stage of the game, Galway looked very open and it was frenetic, and you thought, God, Kilkenny have more goals in them here. Did Shefflin do anything to tighten up that situation, did you feel?
He did, yeah. I think what happened was, as you see, Pádraig Walsh, he starts predominantly at 11 and he goes in that Roman road which brings him out to midfield. He sucked out Gareth McInerney, which then ultimately sucked out the half-forward line. That created an awful lot of space inside for Eoin Cody, who was doing the world of damage on Jack Grealish. And the 2 goals came from the creation of Eoin Cody, winning the ball by himself, taking on Jack Grealish one-on-one with no support cover. So Henry Shefflin, then he took David Burke, who was starting in the 10 position, and brought him back in as a sweeper, which I was a bit concerned about, because when you're playing a sweeper with the breeze, it tells you that you're kind of concerned about your defence. But then in the second half, that seemed to be nullified. There was a big surprise at half-time when TJ Reid was taken off, and that just, I don't know that helped Galway in any way, but it certainly helped them to have their defence in their set positions. And they did that. They set their positions. They had their 6 backs inside their own 50-yard line, if you like, for vast majority of the game. And no more goal opportunities came via Kilkenny until the last book of the game. So I think that shift to David Burke culminated in Galway getting their, I suppose, stopping the rot, because there was a stage there where I was very concerned with the way that the Kilkenny were opening up the goal shots. So it was a good move, good tactical move, and it nullified the threat of Owen Cody. Plus, he also switched Pádraig Manning across to Owen Cody, and then Pádraig Manning ultimately won man of the match. So that tells his own story.
Okay, and Manning's a big physical presence, so one-on-one moments against Cody, he's going to fancy himself there. So he nullified Cody a touch.
Yeah, he did. He definitely nullified him, especially in the last 15 minutes. There was 4 opportunities of a duel, a 50-50 duel. Pádraig Manning won 2, and then he won the last 2 with 2 frees. So that was 4 opportunities where he came out with the ball, and especially the 2 frees that he got. It was a stage in the game whereby there was 2-3 points in the difference, and it just stemmed the flow of Kilkenny. It stopped everything, took another 30-40 seconds off it, and allowed Galway to put the ball into the corner and waste another bit of time. So that was a critical move, and kudos to him. Great performance.
And so big picture, James, Galway now top of the table, top of the Leinster table. Admittedly, they've played an extra game, but they're looking good now to progress. What would you say about Galway here under Sheahan?
I'm very content. I know it's the round robin, it's not do or die stuff. You'd have to say that we are going to finish on a minimum of 7 points. You'd be hopefully finishing on 9 points with Dublin to come here in a couple of weeks' time. So I'm going to err on the side of positivity and say that in Shefflin's first year, it looks like he's going to get to a Leinster final. Who will be playing? Most likely, by the looks of it, is going to be Kilkenny as well. So there's going to be a rematch in Croke Park. And I think with the way Galway performed today and the way their main clientele performed, like you're looking at Joe Cooney, Tom Monaghan, got 7 points from play in midfield. So when you're building that scoring efficiency or building that scoring threat from your midfield onto your forwards, it looks really good for a team. And I was amazed by the work rate in the first half. I struggle to think of a performance, especially in the first 15-20 minutes from a Galway team, whereby they put in as many tackles, hooks, blocks, body checks. Everything was physical. It screamed to me of a Kilkenny pattern in the game, which I'm delighted to see in Galway.
Well, it must hit home if, of all players, of all talents in the game, Henry Sheahan sits the team down and says, trust me, you don't win All-Irelands without working with unbelievable humility and ferocity. And if you lads think you're good enough to do it without working that hard, trust me, you're not. Now, I'm sure every manager who's ever taken over a team has preached hard work, but there is an extra weight to it when it's Henry Sheahan saying it.
Absolutely. Like one of the Galway players going back a couple of weeks ago, when it was after the Limerick League game in which they won, I just asked him, what's he like as a person? What's he like as a manager? And they said, he's the type of person you want to follow. So that's a great trait in a manager, but he's done everything in the game, so there's nothing he says that you can't say that's not true, or I don't trust him, because he's gone through it. He's won multiple Irelands, he's 11 All-Stars. So he's possibly the game's greatest ever hurler. So if you're not going to listen to him, you don't belong in the inter-county panel. Yeah. And if you look at the Kilkenny teams over the last 20 odd years, their foundation, their non-negotiable has been their as you said, their ferocity in a tackle, their work rate. Yeah. So that's what their whole game was built upon. And mix that in with players of high quality talent and high skill, you're going to get a good team.
Kilkenny are in a transition of sorts, that's for sure. I can't quite work out if Cody is bringing through and building a new great team, or if he's just squeezing every last ounce out of the TJ Reid generation. Maybe it's a combination of the two, but it just has felt over the last couple of years like Kilkenny very much have a ceiling, maybe All-Ireland semi-final level, and I don't know, did you see much to suggest today that there isn't still that same ceiling?
That's hard to tell. Like I was trying to think back, when was the last time TJ Reid was taken off at half time, or taken off in general, and I couldn't think of it.
Was he not playing well, James?
He wasn't. He was well marshalled. He was marking. It was either Darren Morrissey, Gareth McInerney and Dahi Burke. And to be fair, the three of them got the upper hand on him. They got the upper hand on him on strength and pace, and it looked like that TJ was a bit lethargic at times, to be honest.
Well, sorry to interrupt you. There was a moment in the first half where he got the ball and he had a direct route to goal. Admittedly, it was on a bit of an angle, and there was a Galway player running across to stop him. And I feel TJ Reid 5 years ago, never like absolutely electric. He wasn't Eddie Brennan, but he could move. But I feel 5 years ago he runs in and has a shot at goal, whereas he made up his mind very early in that dynamic to just take the point. And I thought, I
agree.
Yeah.
I agree, because I know that opportunity was in the 13 corner, and he was going on to his right, and I was thinking this is trouble for Galway. But it's like what you said. It's nearly like he understands his own capabilities at the moment. I think Anthony with the ball, with the hurl, he's fantastic. He's sublime. But I think with regards to pace at the moment, he may have lost a yard. And look, that comes at age. He's hitting 34, 35 years of age this year. So it's not as if he hasn't got a lot of mileage racked up. He has, and he's definitely come back from an injury which has his own that carries his own toll. Like, these injuries add up, and the mileage adds up. So he's not the TJ Reid of old. So I think, go back to your previous question about Brian Cody, he's going to have to blood in new players. But when you look at the performance of Owen Cody today, he was fantastic. He was brilliant for 55, 60 minutes of the game, and he caused Galway real trouble. But he just didn't get the support. The scores from the forwards, I'm looking here, they got 2-11 from the whole forwards, which, if I know it's easy for me to say, if you count out the 2 goals, which looked like defensive errors from my perspective, 11 points, just not enough from your forward unit. And he's going to have to stick with it and stick with the plan. Bring in the new guys. Stick with keeping Adrian Murray in the forwards, and stick with Billy Ryan, and stick with Pádraig Walsh. But that was at the start, Joe. When the league first started this year, I was looking at Pádraig Walsh, who predominantly we know in his county hurling as a back. Put him into centre forward. I just asked the question: Is there a reason behind this? Does he see his backs unit being more than sufficient, and his forwards unit being deficient? So, I think when you take a top quality player like Pádraig Walsh out of your unit, backs unit, and push him up to the forwards, there's reasons behind that.
Yeah. Interesting handshake between Cody and Sheahan. Wouldn't say it was a love-in.
Well, I saw it here in person, and I was looking down to see who initiated, and there was 100% Henry Sheahan initiated the handshake with Brian Cody. Brian Cody was probably a touch, you could say, angered by the way that the game finished, but Henry went over, and you can see it here. He didn't let go of Henry's hand. Henry had actually had his body turned away from Brian Cody to leave the handshake, and Brian Cody held on to his hand. He gave him a look. It was like a father looking at his son in a disappointed manner after he did something wrong, And he didn't let go of his hand for a good 2 seconds, Joe. Henry, if you look at it, he actually had to pull away his hand. So I think there's more to that story, if I'm honest. I think that probably, in my opinion, I'd say Brian Cody has approached Sheahan over the last number of seasons, asked him to give some assistance to the senior squad. I don't know, is it a case of taking over the long term? But I'd say that didn't happen. And when Henry goes to Galway, I think with a traditionalist like Brian, who's Kilkenny hurling, Kilkenny blood in his blood through and through, I'd say that disappoints him to a certain extent. But it's definitely the bragging rights are going to Henry Sheahan for the time being. For the time being, exactly. Listen, thank you so much for hanging on, James Scall. Appreciate it. Thanks, Joe. See ya.
Well, Brian, it was a real harem-scarum match. Goodison Park, Everton get the win, 1-0. I'll be honest with you, I said a couple of weeks I was talking to Kevin Kilbane, I felt Everton could be going down. I think this is looking really serious for them. But after that performance today, my mind has totally changed. What do you think they've done?
Well, it certainly adjusted the style of play. I mean, you look in the last 4 games, they beat Manchester United 1-0, they draw with Leicester 1-1, they beat 2-0 at Liverpool, they beat Chelsea today. So they got 7 points in those 4 games. I think if you'd have asked any Everton supporter in advance of the 4 games, would they take 7 points? They said, yes, please. I think, they've obviously played a much tighter system. They changed today again and went to a 5 at the back with Alex Iwobi right back. And Mikalenko left wing back with Seamus going into a third centre half, and it was very effective. Allowed the centre halves to go in after Werner and Mount playing as whatever the 2 number 10s they're called now, and they defended very well and they waited on the chance. Didn't get too many chances in the first half, but they worked hard to get the chance in the second half, and Richarlison played very well. Mostly as the defensive centre forward, I'd say, chasing round Everton's 3 centre backs to stop the build-up play. But they got the reward, they got the goal, and then they dug in. But it did take some great saves from Pickford to keep Chelsea out. But a massive victory for them, and it gives them a good chance. But unfortunately, from their point of view, Burnley are on a bit of a run as well. They've won 3 games in a row, and Leeds are there. Leeds are not in a great situation. But they've given themselves a real chance, and there'll obviously be confidence in the side now, having won that game today. Can they do something in a couple of the away matches is the question. Their away form has been very poor. They're still to go to Watford. I think they've got Watford and they've got Brentford and they've got
Villa home, Villa away.
They've got Villa. So there's still points there for them to get, but they're going to need more points. That puts them on 32. I think they'll need 38 points to stay up.
So at least 2 wins. The good thing for them, though, is that Richarlison scored. That's his first one in a while. Dominic Calvert-Lewin hasn't been scoring. Interesting to see him left on the bench.
Hasn't been playing.
Yeah, and Rondon coming on, so he's obviously out of favour. So really important, I think.
I wouldn't say he's out of favour. I'd just say he's not fit enough and that he's not sharp enough. I'd say the fact they got him on the bench today would indicate that he must have trained during the week. Or another week's training, they might think about starting him in the match or bringing him on if it comes down to a situation similar to today. It was probably situation today was more about not getting another goal. It was about defending the goal. There was no point in risking Calvert-Lewin if he wasn't really fit.
And they got a clean sheet against Manchester United at Goodison, a clean sheet today at Goodison against Chelsea. Two good sides with good goal scorers in them. What do you think Frank Lampard has done to do it? Because he was never known for his good defensive coaching at Chelsea.
Well, the pressure is on now to get results by hook or by crook. It's not about stylish football and playing an open, expansive game. It's about digging in and making the best of what you have. And when you look at what they have, you look at Anthony Gordon and Gray and Richarlison and say, well, they're at their best on the counter-attack because they've got a bit of pace and dribbling skills between them. And there's no point in them trying to outplay Chelsea with buildy-uppy football, I'd say, from the back. I mean, you saw in recent games, Liverpool game, Manchester United game, no short kick-outs, no throwing the ball out at the back and trying to play out through the midfield and up to the front. It's been king it up and play from there. It's the old style. And, if that's what's required and that's what's effective to get you results, that's okay. And Frank Lampard has recognised that. I don't think it would be his natural game or in his own DNA. He would have been brought up in the West Ham style as a player, obviously played for Chelsea for years, but would have been brought up on that style of possession-based football, bringing everyone into the game, getting your attackers up the pitch. But that's not what's required at the moment. It's about being solid defensively, battling and scrapping the midfield, making a few chances on the counter in the front positions, and then if you get ahead, dig in. And that's what they've done against Manchester United and Chelsea to get 6 points. So, they've still a bit to do. 32 points for 5 games to go. As I said, I think they'll need at least 38. So they're going to have to find another 6 points.
Well, just lastly on that particular situation, the relegation situation, you're looking at Leeds. As you would expect, they got beaten by Manchester City last night. But out of those 3 teams, as you mentioned, Burnley are in good form. Everton have shown good form today. Of those 3, who would you be most worried for?
Well, prior to today's performance, Everton, I would have said. But having got the win today, I think they'll all be buoyed by that. I think they'll all feel a lot better about themselves, and I think they'll have found a style that's working for them. And I think it's fair to say they have a lot of good players out and not available, and lads that could be contributing. We talked about Calvert-Lewin, Tom Davies is another one, Van de Beek is another one who could make a contribution. Young Patterson, the signed from Rangers, hasn't really had much of a chance as yet. But I think getting a couple of those players back for the run in could be very important to them. Brought on Dele Alli late today. Rondon did all right. But who would I be mostly worried about? I was most worried for them. I really don't know what way it's going to go. Leeds in general have played quite well. I've looked at a good side. The manager's made a difference. Marsh, the team has changed their style. They're more organised defensively, not conceding as many goals too. But I'm sure they're all still very worried about the situation they're in. But at least, I think they're looking at saying, well, Watford are gone. Watford well, they may not be gone mathematically. They're not going to save themselves. Norwich are gone. So there's one spot between the other 3, and it could be a fight till the last day. I think it will be.
Just to ask you finally then, Brian, on Chelsea. They're now on 66 points, just 5 clear of Tottenham, who've moved up to 4th. Arsenal, as we speak, are still to play. They could win against the West Ham side, who have one eye in Europe. Do Chelsea now need to start worrying a bit about that top 4 position?
Well, I think they'll still be okay.
Yeah.
I think they've got eyes on the cup final as well. That's obviously a massive opportunity for them to win a trophy, because it's the only trophy they can win now this season, beaten in the League Cup final and penalties by Liverpool, and obviously out of Europe after those 2 great battles with Real Madrid. So I think that's important competition for them now. But I think they'll be comfortable enough as regards the top 4. Arsenal and Spurs have a bit to do to overtake them, and I think they'll be okay. Chelsea on the top 4 situation. I think that, but the manager put out a very strong team today, and he'd be disappointed with that result. I think next game out, you might be looking at the game after that, the cup final. I think he'll play Leicester in the midweek before the cup final. So he'll be Leicester don't have much to play for either. Their European thing is the more important thing, but they'll know where they stand after this Thursday, where the European situation is over. If that's over, their season is over, Leicester. So it'll be 2 teams, one with a bit to play for, Chelsea top 4 and the FA Cup final. So Chelsea will have more to play for, and I think they'll get those points off Leicester if they need them.
Thanks, Brian.
My pleasure, Stephen. Thank you.
They've done amazingly well this season. Just looking at obviously the Premiership in itself, which obviously I watch a fair bit of, to have only lost 4 games, to be top of the log, to go to Clermont and win, to go to Bordeaux and win in Europe. They must be on nearly 30 odd games now, nearly getting close to 30 games, and to only lost 4 games is a great testament to how well Steve Borthwick has coached the team and improved the team on the back of last season. And at Welford Road, they're formidable. I mean, I can't think the last time they lost there. It's certainly been probably at least 12 months. Very proud European competitors. Strength across the board, well coached, great coaching team. So yeah, I can't speak highly enough of the work they've done. It's one of the iconic stadiums in English rugby. I'm lucky to have been there a few times and got a taste of it, really, what it feels like. And the crowd get right behind them. And this week will be no exception. Hopefully, we've managed to secure some tickets for some Leinster fans, because the Leinster supporters are equally passionate. They're very similar clubs in a lot of ways in terms of the way in which they've been built.
OTB AM
with Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.